This is Kitten Features, and you're listening to ShowX Live with Ken in his student accommodation all the way in Scotland, and Wade in his white windowless van? Uh-oh, I better get out of here. Enjoy the show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to ShowX on VtWProductions.com as we are broadcasting live on Twitch, Mob Crush, YouTube, Facebook, and I think that's it now. I'm trying to get everywheres on the interwebs for all of yous. And so, welcome to the last show of 2019 and of the 2010s. So, last show of the decade. Hey everybody, and how are you doing today, Ken?
Hey, I'm very good, although I missed half of what you just said because for some reason Skype didn't send the audio, but I was testing my audio the whole time and my headset was definitely working.
Weird.
So it seemed to be Skype itself.
It's something...
If you guys can hear us, that's the main thing. If you didn't hear any breaks in our audio there, that's the main thing. Just let us know, alright?
Yeah, I am getting nonsense or things from Skype saying that it's missing audio input from my microphone. So I'm not sure what's going on, but I see it going out.
Yeah, I can't hear you at all. Can you hear me right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So it seems to be that thing that happened with when you first started with the Facebook Live stuff is doing that again.
Interesting.
I can hear you again now. Yeah, it seems to be like 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off or something.
Technology.
So your microphone is going through Skype?
Yeah, I can see it bounce.
Oh, let me check if you're bouncing. I can't hear you again. This is so
weird. I don't know what's going on, kids. So challenges, and we will say apologies in advance to everybody. We've been having little bits of technical issue going into the beginning of the show this whole time. And so we were struggling to get it going like just in time to get on today. I will admit some of this may be due to me in the sense that I just upgraded over this last week to the latest patch version of Windows 10. And I didn't think that would be a huge issue. It was helping out with some other problems I was having with things like USB drivers and stuff like that. And so I was just like, what's going on? Hando, yes and no. Discord is a pain in the rear in so many ways to actually get the show to come through like this. However, I'm showing the bounce that I'm going, oh wait, you know what? Let me turn off the automatically adjusting microphone settings.
Well,
that's
so far you've been absolutely fine for the past minute.
Well, so I think part of the challenge might have been is when I went quiet because of the noise gate, Skype was going, oh, there's no audio. And so, because in the upgrade, it's not so much Windows 10 as Tom, you're trying to say. What it is when I did the update, it's such a severe update, this November 2019 update for Windows 10, that they're doing a slow roll output out to people piece by piece. I went out and saw it myself. Oh, man. Okay, so it's hitting you again. See, I'm still seeing the levels bouncing.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I found out what it is.
It's Kenzen. Look, it's Kenzen. Now, I did have a piece that was going, but that was because with the Windows 10 update, it changed so many things that a lot of my settings went back to defaults for Windows 10 that I had to go reset up and recustomize for the show. And so that is a piece of what I was scrambling with this morning. Things like my Winamp output is, if you look back at the very beginning of the show, some of the audio was on, off. And so it's more that I had this whole reset. And so that was a thing. But I think, Ken, you figured out? You're sorted?
I think I figured out, yeah. Let me just test it by listening to anything else. Okay, could you speak?
I am here, Ken, and talking to you now.
Fixed it.
All right, so it wouldn't be a proper output show for ShowX if we didn't have some technical difficulty going into the end of this decade. But we are sorted now, so hopefully the rest of the show will be good. And sorry, copy, I know you would have loved if these mistakes resulted in an echo, Ken, but we are trying to avoid that in the future. Anyhow.
Yes.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Happy to have you here.
If you're interested, I found out what the problem was. Basically, this headset has two Bluetooth quality receivers. One is phone quality, one is standard, whatever standard is for them. And for some reason, my computer decided that Skype deserved to have the high quality, and my actual normal audio output would be the phone quality. So whenever there was any computer noise, it would then override and change channel. So suddenly I couldn't hear Skype anymore, and then when Skype would go on, I couldn't hear anything else. And so I realized that, and now it's solved by putting them both the same high quality channel.
See, we're figuring it out. Here we go. But welcome to the show, everybody. Hopefully you're having a wonderful holiday season. And we have all kinds of things to talk about today. We're going to try to keep it a little bit short on the things that we've been up to, just as a quick update, so that we can talk about all of the various lists and things that there are for technology, gaming, science, and more for the end of this year and this decade. And so I am going to keep it very brief. All I have really talked to is we had a happy Christmas here in my household. Thankfully, my folks are down, and a big shout out to my brother Earthweaver for trekking all the way across the 12-plus hour drive here and then again back to come spend Christmas with my folks and myself. So big shout out to Earthweaver. Thank you very much. Glad you could join us. With that, a lot of discussions out there in general, Christmassy type things. I was very generic and quick in my gifting this year. I focused on my nieces and nephews and gave them all gift cards for the Amazon so that they could get out there and pick up whatever it is they want this year, as I have been scrambling around doing all kinds of other things myself. Other than that, we kind of had just a chill day celebrating with family, played some board games, some card games, things around the table, which is kind of a tradition in my family, and just kind of hung out. It was nice. So that was my Christmas, as you will. Beyond that, I don't know if there's anything else in particular. I think I'll mash this up a little bit with the tech news as well, and just that I finally, as much as I did, I also did a lot of shopping over the holidays, sadly not just for gifts, but to finish up projects I've had, and things like I've got the cords now fully mounted for the office for this hanging microphone setup I have, where I got ties and things to put them all back. I also got it so I was able to run the microphone cable all the way around as well. So I have this great void of space here now above my desk where I don't have mic stands like hanging or sitting on the table, which is wonderful for me. I've reclaimed all this desk space, so that's been a wonderful thing. I think Hando would almost be proud of me in seeing how I've tried to get things set up. And so trying to do things for the quality of the show that way. That being said, tech-wise, all my 3D printers up and running again, which is always a cross my fingers, knock on wood kind of situation, because that only lasts intermittently for moments in time. But I had posted a video on social media showing that they were all running and that I finished upgrading or getting the oldest one I have sorted so it can print taller now, and I'm currently testing it out to see how well it'll produce new things. And if it does go solid, I plan on starting to build some pretty big projects. That's most of what I felt I needed to cover. I mean, there's discussions about that we can't spoil yet about still episode 9, and hoping all of you guys have gotten out there and see that. I continue to see in Star Wars up and down reviews of it, depending on who and what people have seen. I know Hando wasn't a big fan. I have some other friends who have expressed their dismay, although I've still yet to hear the details. And then I have my whole slew of friends that are like, can't hold themselves back. They've enjoyed it so much. It's crazy to me how polarizing this one seems to be. However, non-polarizing, well, maybe a little bit, it has been the finale for Mandalorian. So episode 8 came out. If people haven't seen that one, I was a big fan. I like where they've gone with it. Trying to think other things along those lines. I think those are big ones like tech and news and geek-wise for me this week. How about yourself, Ken?
That was incredibly short. Wow. Possibly record time, actually.
Again, I want to actually focus on like news and stuff these times. And no, Tom, I will not spoil anything. Okay,
I'll try and keep mine as short as I can for the dysfunctional, and then we'll see how it goes for the next part. Okay, so first of all, another reason the show almost didn't go ahead today is my laptop over the past year. I don't know if you guys remember, but about a year ago I dropped it. Right, I dropped my laptop while I was going to do some washing, and I had a bag of washing. Like a laundry basket kind of thing, and then I had like my backpack on top of it, and I was carrying it, and then the backpack fell off with my laptop in it and landed on the ground. It was only about 1.5 feet fall, but it was enough for it to get, well, it's got a big chunk missing from the corner of it where it directly hit, and immediately afterwards the fan inside started going crazy sometimes. So I was sort of like, oh no, is this a big issue? Is this minor? And over the months, it just sort of occasionally was, it made a little bit of a noise once in a while if I held it in a weird position. And so I would turn it off and on again, and then I'd put it back in like a flat position and it'd be fine. Up until 2 days ago, I started realizing that if I turn on the laptop at all, even on a flat surface, the fan would go crazy like a chainsaw. So I thought, maybe I just need to settle again. It'll be fine. But today I had to take it apart, and with Kitten's help, thank you very much, dear. And with Kitten's help, we managed to put it back together. Say hi to everybody.
Hi guys.
Hey! Oh, Kitten, you've got to lean down to show the hood.
You've got to show the hood. You've got to lean down and show the hood. There you go.
This is my hangover onesie. I took potions last night. I'm very tired. Nice to see you guys. I'm going to jump on the Twitch stream as well, so I'll be chatting in the
cool. Good for you.
See you guys in a bit.
Love you.
Love you.
We had the laptop issues. And we took it apart, and I was sending video messages to Wayne like, "Help! What's going on here? Give me your expertise, quick!" And
literally 15 minutes before the show.
Yeah, this was like 20 minutes ago. Yeah, and we found. I found out that it was the graphics card fan. It was slightly asymmetrically sort of sitting, so it was not like spinning nice and cleanly. It was slightly to the side, so it was bashing against the side of the fan case. It would cause no real issue, right? I mean, technically it'll do its job, it'll still work.
Well, yeah, except that it was making a horrid noise, and over time it would likely disintegrate itself, because I have seen that happen on my 3D printers and such, where I've knocked something and it worked for a while, and then eventually the fan just got worse and worse and worse until it kind of disintegrated in the worst kind of way.
Well, it was just getting smacked again and again and again multiple times a second. It's gonna, it will eventually disintegrate. So instead, I thought to myself, well, what actually you said, you're probably gonna have to replace that, and I was like, all right, fine. If I'm probably gonna have to replace it, then I've already, resigned my care for this fan. So I put a box cutter knife in it and then just turned, so that the case went from this thin to that wide. And then I put it back in the laptop. It doesn't look very pretty now. Closed it all up, pressed on, no problems. I turned on dying light, and it's fine.
Okay, so
it's a temporary solution.
Yeah, I was going to say it's temporary, because eventually the heat aspect of it may not truly be able to mitigate your issues as it should. Yeah. I was going to ask if you had felt the back to see if it's still blowing well enough that you can feel like the heat evacuating from the laptop, or if it's...
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. The fan is doing...
It's doing what's supposed to. Well, I just said because it's how well does it work if it's sealed or not. Yes. But yes, that will be replaced, hopefully in the near future, once you find the right part number.
Yes, all that gunk. So that's been going on. But thankfully, we managed to salvage the laptop in time for the show. It was almost a phone show today, but thankfully it's not.
That is, thank goodness.
Yes, thankfully. It was Christmas this week. Nothing really major to talk about. There was nothing out of the ordinary. We went to a friend's house. We had a Brazilian colleague of mine invited me and Ken Features to come sit and have Christmas dinner with them.
Nice.
Very kindly, and it was amazing. They're really, really incredibly good at cooking. And it was in true Brazilian style. That they had salmon out for us for pescatarian, and it wasn't just like, here's a strip of salmon that's your bit. It was like, here's a salmon. It was just so much like the meat of the fish. There's so much of it that we didn't even get through like a third of it. It was just mental. They also had ribs out for the other guests that were like, again, the way I described it was, it didn't look like what you would traditionally think of as meat. Instead, it looked like part of an animal, like
you just literally cut pieces off.
Yeah, it was like they just took like the rib cage and cooked it, and it was like, here you go. It was like, wow, and it smelled amazing as well. So many different types of food, so much food, and great quality too. We had a fantastic Christmas dinner, and they very kindly hosted us. We really enjoyed that. One of the gifts that I got Ken Features for her Christmas was where we were last night. So basically, we had Ken and sorry, I just glanced at the chat, which is always a mistake. Coffee says to Ken Features, "You should have cat emojis." And then Ken Features did a cat emoji. Then VtWShowX did a cat emoji. Then Copy did another cat emoji. Then Ken Features said, "Oh my god, I didn't know you could have cat emojis." And
then all of the cat emojis.
Yeah, and you said, "And this is how our chat is taken over." And then we've been just inundated with cat emojis since. So we went out last night to the Yule Ball, which was my gift to Kitten Features for Christmas. One of a few gifts, and that was over in Grand Rapids. So it was our first time going over there. So we rented a car and drove over there last night. And since I was driving, I couldn't partake in the various potions and elixirs that were available, sadly. Since it's the Yule Ball, it's a Harry Potter Christmas themed party, right? A ball. We upgraded our tickets from the standard ones to VIP, which meant we got to have dinner and watch a rather mediocre magician, which was like fine, whatever. We sat with various different people, and some of them were okay.
I'm loving how you're doing the immediate translation in your head to somewhat radio friendly or show friendly commentary.
Swear or anything.
No, I know not swear. It's how you're going to label them.
Maybe, because he's part of the geek crowds.
Come on, Ken, be honest. You don't have to name people; just describe them.
All right. So basically, there was a couple people we met there who, you know what, they should have been really likable because they had all the same hobbies that we enjoy, but they really enjoyed cosplay and other geeky things. They loved The Mandalorian. We were talking about that and stuff, but they were talking about it from the position of looking down their nose. It was very, we go to all the cons. We're always first in line. And we have all the best cosplays.
Ooh,
and,
elitist geeks.
They were so elitist, and the guy was trying to show off his utilikilt, which I think is really cool.
I like utilakilts.
When he showed us, I was like, "Oh, cool, a utilikilt," and he was like kind of taken aback. He was surprised that I knew it, I think. And then Ken Features goes, "Oh, actually, Ken's Scottish. We actually just arrived, so yeah, it's kind of funny you're wearing a kilt." And they just sort of went, "Huh," and then they continued to talk on about their own stuff.
Yeah, no, they want to be the center of attention and such. So just because you're in a certain fandom or you appreciate the same things as others doesn't mean you're not a jerk.
Yeah, right. I mean, like we try to be. We asked them so many questions and try to be kind to them, but they never asked us anything, and they just sort of were very keen to give us attention. And I think they actually kind of annoyed that when they showed off the kilt, I was like, "Oh, cool, I'm Scottish." Like that we.
That it
bonding.
totally
that to be
reduced it.
That to be a nice like, "Oh look, I'm Scottish and you're wearing a kilt. This we've got stuff we can talk about. This is cool." But instead, it was like, "Oh, you've taken away my center of attention here. We'll move on to the next thing quickly in our list."
Yep. Oh no,
so
you know what?
Annoying because I felt like I was being an asshole because I really wanted to be friends with these guys, but I just struggled to because they. I don't know. I didn't want to talk about why they are so geeky and amazing.
Yeah, not everybody is worth bringing into your circle. I have known so many different levels of geek, and I've run into the truly elitist ones, and I've run into the ones because even the ones who you would normally consider are very counterculture or in their own little tiny niche group can be some of the most elitist asses in the world because they're their own gatekeepers. Yeah, right. They're gatekeepers into their world and their universe, and if you don't accept or enter their fandom in the way that they choose, then they shun you. And it's part of it goes into, and we won't get into the whole political discussion this time, but it goes into the things about things like the cancel culture and stuff like that, where people are more willing to just shut others down than work amongst and around and those with varying levels of opinion. That you run into these people that are in reality they're just jerks.
Well, that's the thing, right? I mean, these cultures and these things that we share should be bonding experiences. They should be points of like, oh, look what we have in common. We can really enjoy each other's company and talk about the things we love. But instead, it's like, do you know enough? Do you know enough to be considered a real fan? And it was just not enjoyable talking to these people. However, we met some other fantastic people last night. We made some friends who we met in lines, we sat next to and such kind people. Some of them were just. They would ask so many questions. We'd ask them lots of questions. We actually made a couple of friends who have asked to hang out with us in the future as well, to go dancing with and such, and that's fun. So it was a really enjoyable experience. We had a really good time, met lots of good people. We're not letting the couple of people we didn't like ruin the evening. That's not the case at all. That was really just a small part of the evening. In general, it was a fantastic night. Kitten got to hold a snake because, of course, she's Slytherin, so she held a snake, which she had no problem with because she was speaking partial tongue to it. So not really, but she did it like such a boss though. Like I was like, there's this tiny little snake that was like the size of a worm, right? And I was like, oh, I don't really want to touch it, and I did, and I was so proud of myself. I was like, I did it. I touched a snake. I did it, even as an adult of my own volition and choice. I touched a snake, and then I turned around to see this big ass thing, right? This like thing that can like go around your body a couple times.
Yeah, constrictor or such.
Yeah, and I don't think it was a constrictor, but it was. I think it was just. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know snakes, but it was a fairly medium. It was a medium-sized snake, right? So a lot bigger than the tiny little thing I had. And Ken walks over and just picks it up, and I was like, "Oh my god, I've just been totally outshone here." I felt so proud of myself for being able to pick up this or not even pick up, to touch this tiny little snake on the back, and there's Kitten dancing with this thing. I was so impressed. She did such a good job. So that was really cool. They had all these other animals on display. They had some interesting drinks there. I had the non-alcoholic butter beer, which was quite tasty. Don't know if it was worth $7, but it was quite tasty. And we also there was free donuts that were made by a local place. They were all Harry Potter themed. They were really nice. There was lots of photo opportunities around the place, including like dragons, big sculptures of dragons, and other strange creatures. There was dancing, there was swing dancing, and there was, most importantly, the reason we actually went last night was one of our favorite bands at the moment is a band called The Accidentals, who are based in Michigan. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll actually have seen you might have seen a little bit outfall of this. I put up a tweet this morning actually saying, the song Michigan and Again by The Accidentals was the theme song of our decision to move from Scotland to Michigan, USA last month. It was poignant and thoroughly enjoyable hearing it live last night. So me and Kitten were actually in the line to get our Patronuses drawn by a local artist who did an amazing job, and I'll show them in a second. And the whole reason that we went to this event was because we wanted to see the Accidentals, right? That was why we went. But because we'd been in this line for 2 hours, and we were like, well, we can hear them, and they're right there. They're just around the wall, but we can't lose our position in the queue because we're next in the line. Like, we were literally waiting for 2 hours, and we were next in the line. And that song came on, and we were like, oh my god, trust it to be now, as soon as we can't leave, like the 1 minute we can't leave. So we just sort of stood where we were and danced there, and listened to the live music, and it was really sweet. And so I put up that tweet this morning, and to also add to the geeky happiness, we got retweeted by the Accidentals this morning, who themselves saw that tweet and must have thought it was sweet. So that was very kind, and that made us very happy. So our Patronuses, this is, as you can tell straight away, this is Kitten features.
Nice.
Her Patronus. So this is her as an angry cat, which is very, very appropriate because she is a very small and angry cat. And in fact, this is in particular the face that she makes when she wants me to bring her tea. So that's what that is. And he drew that right in front of us in about 8 minutes. It was just so impressive, just straight away. He had like 100 pens in front of him and just drew that straight away, based on the design that we gave him. So we gave him a picture of a cat that we wanted to do. Similarly, I gave him a picture of a bear for me, and this is the result.
Nice.
So, yeah, he drew that right in front of us, and a picture of the bear. So it was very, very kind of him to sit there, because that guy was sitting there for about 4 or 5 hours. He must have drawn about 1,000 Patronuses over the night for each person. And some people were like, can you do another one for me? Can you do a third? And he wasn't getting tips or anything. It was part of the event, right? So this guy just sat for like 5 hours, nonstop, crazy. Like Ken kept saying, like, I could barely do like a couple drawings a year. Never mind, what you did tonight was insane. And he was like, I enjoy it. It's what I love to do. His name is, I assume he wouldn't mind me giving him a shout out. It's Marco Rizlo. He's on Instagram and Facebook, so feel free to check him out. He's a pretty neat guy.
Nice.
So that was the Yule Ball. It was a lot of fun. We had a really good time. It was really quite special. And that's everything I should talk about, so we can move on to the news and geekery and such. So that's my week, sir.
Outstanding. Well, I'd already talked about the little bit of geek that I was speaking to. I think there's one we can both talk to since it's in your list as well. And my brother reminded me that while Earth was here, we took them time between events and stuff like that to kind of catch up, as well as to binge a show together. And so we sat down and watched all of The Witcher throughout the couple days.
Ooh. Okay, I've not finished all, and plus we shouldn't do spoilers.
Oh no,
anyway,
I won't spoil anything. Like I said, I'm good at this. I feel like I have done a good job not being a spoiler when it talks about any of the new things coming out.
Yes.
Hey, is to choice. I don't think anyone can complain that I've spoiled anything bad, and so I've been enjoying the Witcher series. I've completed it now with my brother and I think we both walked away from it thinking, darn well done. You know, that we really appreciated what they put to screen. And I will say that I have not read any of the books, and I have only put in maybe a half hour to an hour of playing Witcher 3. And that's it. Other than that, I'm aware of it, but didn't really do much outside of that. And going into the series that way, I really enjoyed what they put on screen. I enjoyed the character development. I enjoyed a lot of the things they kind of did just in the story overall, the world they're showing. And with that, you know, it was fun because I think both my brother and I found moments in the plot that we somewhat predicted. I was pretty much on point with what they were going to do with Yennefer when it came to some of the physicality of her and stuff like that. My brother was on point with figuring out what one character portrayed later in the season would end up doing later into this story and stuff, where it was just like, hey, I'd give him props, like, good shot looking at that, good job. Where I wasn't really sure, but I could see where they kind of led to it. But it's gritty. The effects and monsters, I think, are wonderful. I love Henry Cavill's portrayal, just everything in it. The joke I made early on was that both of us kind of talked about, my brother and I, that, you know, I would interview him and say, so how many grunt types did you actually work on? How many ways did you focus on the grunt? Because there are so many times when in a conversation or something, the Witcher, you know, Geralt just kind of goes,
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do a swear. I apologize. I'm going to say a swear.
A quoted swear? Are you just redoing a quote?
Oh yeah, I'm quoting. Oh, well, there is a couple I could do. But I'm just thinking in general. I've seen a few memes going around that, you know, I can't really explain a visual meme very well. But basically, the concept is: should we have an in-depth story and emotional explanation for the way I'm feeling through dialogue by Geralt, or should he just grunt and say shit occasionally?
He does curse, and I think in most cases the cursing that happens in the show are appropriate, because a situation will occur and his response is like, F. You know, it's just, it fits.
Made me just giggle. I don't know why. I just thought it was so funny every time he did it.
Yeah.
You know, you think the stereotypical hero of the story, you know, admittedly not to the extreme of Deadpool or anything like that, but you expect them to kind of be, he is supposed to be a hero of some sort, right? That's kind of what he's been built up to be, is something of a hero, right? He
in context to the world, yeah.
Of humanity.
Well, he slays monsters. Whether it's for good or not, who knows? But yes, he slays monsters. For coin.
For coin. But only, you know, he it has to be a monster. He doesn't kill humans unless he's forced to.
Yeah, no, he himself is generally just going through life devoid of most emotion, not attached to anything, as he kind of says is the way of Witchers. And it's so good. Like, the story itself, or just the world they're portraying, I like how they're showing magic, right? I like kind of the access and what they're doing with magic. I like that it is visceral in the sense that it is violent. There's no question to that. In some of the early episodes, much more so than later even, where when you see Geralt go through and do swordplay, it's just like, oh! But I will give credit to the producers of it that while they are showing some truly vicious acts and bloodiness and things like that, I feel like they do it in a way that's not gratuitous. And so, yes, you will see a sword go through someone's face in a way that you're just like, dang. But they don't focus on it visually in such a way that you're left going, oh my God, that's disgusting. It just happens, you're like, dang, and then it kind of moves on from there. And so I don't think they ever show gore in a way that's just for the sake of gore. I really appreciate that.
Not at all. No. I think a lot of people are comparing it to Game of Thrones because they say there's a lot of sex and violence, and I was like, well, there is sex, but it's not gratuitous.
It's all light,
and it's more of a this is the world they live in, where the rich and the ones who have power tend to just flaunt their nudity.
Yeah, they're hedonistic. They're on top. Yes, exactly. It's not. I was trying to think back to the series like Game of Thrones, or even before that, the one that came off of Gladiator, I think it was the spin-off series from that.
300.
No, not from 300. It was from
the TV series.
Yeah, it's a TV series. It's the one that had Lucy Lawless in it, and I forget some of the other ones, but that one had like gratuitous sex and violence. I think we jokingly said it was the male version of a raunchy soap opera or something like that. I forget the name of the series, but those ones did it for the sake of almost shock. Yeah, Spartacus. Thank you. And like those, where this one does it tastefully, and it really just helps show the world. Just like you said, it kind of captures what's going on. So
it's both showing the power of those people and the fact that the world is very much based in basal emotion, right? I mean, like, it feels like everybody's just doing what they on impulse want to do, and that's the problem that's why most of the problems exist. Is people acting on their basal instincts and what they want to do rather than what they should do. And the one person who does the opposite is Geralt, right?
Yeah, well, he has his code and kind of keeps to it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I'm a big fan. I chuckle in the way that I don't feel like we binged it so much as we took the opportunity we had together to watch it. Like I was like, have you seen? No, I hadn't. Went back and started it again with my brother, and we went through the whole thing. It took us a couple days, but I do understand now the memes that people talked about, oh no, the next season won't come out until 2021. And so there's going to be quite some time. But I also heard, along with, maybe it was a both or maybe separate, one of the two, between Mandalorian and Witcher, that already we know that the next seasons have been greenlit. And I want to say that it was Witcher, I heard that season 3 has already been greenlit, or something to that effect. And in either case, I'm very hopeful for it because I'm enjoying both of those series, pretty much across the board. And I haven't heard really a whole lot of negative. I've heard some people provide some specific criticisms, but they're comparing it to some of their preconceptions.
Since this is a topic we can both talk on, here's my sort of thoughts on the past week for me watching The Witcher. I originally gave it a 10 out of 10 for the first episode, and that's what I'd seen last week, right? I'd seen one episode. I've now watched 5, 6 of the episodes out of 8.
You're almost done, yeah.
And I have to say I've lowered my rating to about a 9.5 now, which is, it's still one of the best TV shows I've ever seen, but it's no longer, contender for number 1, I would say. I thoroughly enjoy it, and it's great. But there's a couple of minor things that have annoyed me. Okay, I think it comes from the fact that mostly that I know the Witcher lore to an extent, and I think they've done a lot of that really, really well. There was one episode, okay, again, this is not a spoiler because if you've read any of the Witcher books or played any of the games, this is already out there. This is not a spoiler in any understanding of what spoiler is.
I like how Ken caveats his before saying it, where I'm just like, I'm just not going to spoil. Yes, Ken?
Well, it's not a spoiler. Okay, I won't tell you the plot. I'll just say one of the characters. Sonic the Hedgehog, right?
Gotcha.
There's a scene, I'm not going to explain why or whatever, but there's a scene where Sonic the Hedgehog starts flying, and I'm just like, this is supposed to be a really, touching and powerful scene, and I'm just like, why is Sonic the Hedgehog flying? I couldn't get out of my head that this card looked so dumb. It was pretty well done for what it was, but it looked like they tried to make a truly real-life version, not like the animated film of Sonic, but I mean a truly realistic real-life version of Sonic the Hedgehog. That's what it would look like. And I was like,
I think they explained that just fine.
They explain it, but it's just not what I expected. I've read the books.
Okay.
And I've seen I've played the game, right? Or at least Witcher 3 anyway, not entirely 1 and 2. And I know what was supposed to happen in that scene, and I remember the description that they gave for that character. and I never once thought that he looked like Sonic the Hedgehog. Like,
and I don't know the source, so I can't compare. But I think it worked just fine coming through it. So I don't know. It's one of those things that I don't have a reference. I just appreciate what they gave me in it, and maybe that's why I don't have the criticisms that I've heard a lot of people showing recently for some of these. But if that was your only complaint, then I don't think it's all that bad.
Yeah. Yeah, there was one minor thing, and the other thing is that, and this is not okay. I have two parts to say here. One of them I actually shared on Facebook, and I had a major swear. It's the first time I put the C word on our ShowX page.
Uh-oh.
And probably the last time, because I thought it was in the fight against racism. So I thought that was one of the few times that I think that's kind of an appropriate time to be so vulgar. I'll try and find the actual comment.
While you're doing that, big shout out to Nicholas. Thank you for following us. Appreciate that.
Oh, thank you very much. So it's a SpongeBob meme, and it was making fun of people who say the following: the cast should all be white because Witcher's based in medieval Poland. And then it's somebody responding with saying elves, dwarfs, dragons, monsters, fictional continent populated by parallel universe merger. Advanced knowledge of genetics and mutation in said universe. Not a single line about human pigmentation in the entire series, apart from that whole pale. And Sapkowski, who was the author, consulted on and approved the show. And the central theme of the book is "Don't be a racist." Swear word. Right. And it's one of the things that I've seen on Reddit and Twitter is a very small minority of people who like The Witcher, but never once picked up on that main theme of racism is bad.
Oh, man.
Right? It's kind of a central theme to the Scoia'tael and everything else.
Oh, there's so many ways people interpret media themselves, and it's funny how people press things into fantasy, a lot of it being based upon how previously visualized fantasy has been portrayed, right? And go figure that if it's illustrated, whatever the case, a book, a story, something from history, by a group in that location and time, they often illustrate in a certain way. And so people sometimes form their basis for that reality based on old ideas and specific authors, right? But, I mean, let's look at religious figures and how they're depicted.
Right.
Bad all the time when we actually have real history to portray it. Just as thoughts. But
plus, if you look at certain religious figures, you'll find that famous and important families in the 1400s, I think it was, were actually the ones who got themselves painted to be the cover for certain religious figures, right?
Right.
Which is okay.
Not at all blasphemous, but hey,
I guess
regardless. But yes. That's interesting that people still get stuck on those kind of things, because I'll admit,
just funny, isn't it? Because it's literally a fantasy universe. It's a different world that they have made up.
Yeah.
And in that universe, skin color is just
well, the only one that mattered was Geralt, right? Because he's very specifically the Witcher, being of white hair essentially, and things like that, was very distinctive as a look. So that made sense when you define the one character.
Based on the game, I get that, right? The only thing that was jarring for me, and I have to say, I did notice the difference here, is, and this is, I suppose, a very minor spoiler, but it's not really not, because who'd have thought that characters in the books would also be in the series? Triss Merigold exists in this universe, surprisingly enough, one of the main character mages, and the way that she was displayed in the games is a very pale redhead, right? So when Triss Merigold was introduced as a black character, I did sort of take a double take of, I was expecting you not to
the way
like
it was
that,
in the
right?
game. Yeah.
But you know what I then did? I didn't then go, I'm going to go complain on Twitter and Reddit and 4chan because I'm so upset. I instead said, all right.
Well, and there's a lot of examples where that's been a modern thing people have done. I mean, you look at Americanized versions of a lot of content, things like the movie Ghost in the Shell, which I quite appreciate and a lot of people hate, where they focus on the major versus, I don't know, the whole rest of the cast that they also put different races in, things like that. I have criticism for things like the visual portrayal in Ready Player One of H's avatar, because they're in the book had a very specific means as to H using a large white male as an avatar, very different from who she was as a person. Slight spoiler there. But in the movie, they switched it to a large ogre-looking character to totally take away from that very specific plot point and very specific motivation for that character out of the movie. And it just, that was a way that I've seen it done where it annoyed me, because I was like, they had this whole conversation about race and class and things like this in the book that you just completely ignored, by not including in the movie as making a point. Whereas that's something that I think is, in my opinion, of course it's my opinion, a legitimate criticism of doing that kind of different portrayal of an aspect of a character when it comes to visualization.
Well, that's because you're basically saying that they're almost whitewashing it, right? Not even a whitewashing,
in a kind of
monster-washing.
Right. But in a way, they're taking away that conversation that it did absolutely exist in the book and was a very specific conversation that the main characters had talking about that motivation, and they just completely left that out.
My viewpoint on these kind of issues is basically this. If you are trying to sell race, I'm generally not okay with it. If that's the whole purpose of something, like if it's the exact same product as before, but there's now gender-bended characters or racially changed characters, and that's the only difference, you haven't actually done anything creative, so you shouldn't sell that product, right? I don't see a difference there. However, if you've recreated it in some manner, and it's a different and unique thing, then you can do what you want. I don't care.
And if it's your own interpretation because it's not a specific key element of the story or what was portrayed in the universe, then it's fine, right? Then it's fine.
Yes.
And so things like that. Anyhow, all right. Beyond that, I think it's time for us to at least start progressing our way towards the news content for the end of this decade. But I see that you have in the notes a few other things that you might want to bring up in your discussion of Geek before we end it for this year.
Yes, I do. I have a couple more things. So I started. So that was The Witcher, and I've been thoroughly enjoying it, and I can't wait to go and watch more episodes. I'm going to be very sad when that's over. Because I started watching The Witcher, I had to get a month free for Netflix last week. So that's great. I was like, okay, I'll make the most of this while I have it. So on the 24th, I was at work, and I was like the only one in. So I was sitting there and I was like, I'm working away. And I was like, normally I'd listen to music, but I decided I may as well put on a TV show. It's Christmas Eve. Nobody's here. I'm the only one in. It's not a big deal, right? So I put on Star Wars Episode 8. And I thought, I've not seen this yet. I'll start watching it. So I got like an hour and a half in. And eventually I turned off because I was trying to concentrate on something or whatever. And I only watched it for an hour and a half or so. Or an hour, I think, actually. And I turned off. So I didn't get too far in. And then on the 26th, I went back to go finish watching it, or the 27th or something, and it's been taken off of Netflix.
All those Disney licenses running out.
I know, right? So I was like, whatever. I'm not really that bothered. It was enjoyable so far, but I'm not such a hardcore fan that I'm upset by anything so far. Okay, I can't spoil that one either. Really, it's still too new, I guess. There were some scenes that I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. That's a kind of a plot twist.
Oh, no, 8 you could talk about indefinite. We have destroyed 8. It has had so many conversations. I mean, there's been so much, conflict on people's opinions when it comes to Episode 8 that I don't think there's anything left to be spoiled.
Okay, well, I got to the point where, this is a spoiler for those who do care, Episode 8 Star Wars, you have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. When Princess Leia gets blasted out into space, and then she just wakes up and flies. Like, I get it, right? She's in a very strong bloodline of the power of the Force. So right? She's always been implied to have a great amount of potential within her. So it's generally explained as that's why she's such a great leader, and she can sense certain things.
Yeah, the Mary Poppins scene, as Tom brought up.
She can do almost prophecy type stuff. So that's her thing. So I was surprised when she awoken and could actually fly.
So the key there, Ken, Episode 8 will provide you a lot of those, in that it shows a bunch of things and doesn't earn any of it. It just kind of says, here's all these things, and you're like, how does that meet up or work with anything else we've ever been shown? We're not going to tell you anything because we're terrible writers. And so thank God for Episode 9 to come in and try to do its best to, retcon essentially Episode 8 and make it so 8 is not as terrible as it would be standalone. Episode 9, I felt did a ton to fix 8, but 8 was so bad in the way it presented things like that and then never explained it, never earned it, never showed something previous to lead up to something they then use as a key plot device. So it becomes those convenient plot devices, right? They just threw it in because I guess this is how we will connect these scenes. My biggest complaint about 8 was that it looked like it had a lot of very visually interesting scenes that were completed separate from each other. And then they had to find the loosest ways that they could tie them together into a sequence to make a movie. And that was how I defined 8.
I was just mostly surprised by the fact I thought that they were just going to kill off Leia because they knew that maybe the actress was not going to. She died after the filming.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So I thought maybe they thought like, oh, she might die soon, so we should not have her character around because that'll be quite difficult.
They actually planned to go into 9 with Leia being a major component of it.
Right, I see.
And
so they actually had to change the actual story of.
They had to edit 9 because Carrie Fisher passed away, and so there's a lot to be said. But I can go on and on about why I think 8 is a hot steaming pile of garbage. But that's my opinion.
All right. Well, so far it's okay. Like I said, I was only half watching it, so I didn't really have the most care about it in a way. Earthweaver says 8 never happened, just like the prequels. I believe it goes 4, 5, 6, 7, 9.
Essentially, with a smattering of Solo and Rogue One in there. Yeah, that's how I feel.
One was all right. It was fine.
I liked Rogue One. Solo was fun, and people had complaints about it.
Jedi and stuff. I felt like Rogue One was missing a lot of Force magic.
That was the whole point. That was the whole point of it, was to say here's elements where they're not all powerful wizards. Same thing about why The Mandalorian is so good. The Mandalorian is showing what the rest of the world is doing.
Told me I don't care about it anymore. Good. Okay.
Well, you say that, it still has Baby Yoda. It still has, as my brother Babs earlier in the chat said, he's worried about whether he needs to cancel all his subscription services for the next 6 months until the next episodes of things come out, because then he'll need to go back and be ready for the new episodes of the Baby Yoda show. And so, in that same way.
Yeah, that's the only thing that tempts me about, because I never really cared for Boba Fett. I was like, eh. I never got why everybody was like, oh my god, we love Boba Fett.
Because he looked cool. He was dark and brooding and looked cool. For all I think it's famously, 8 seconds of any dialogue or anything with him on it, and barely that many scenes and the whole thing. He just was a cool-looking character that got blown out, and then when you read stories after the fact in books and stuff, it made him out to be really bad arse. And so that's why Boba Fett was cool. It was just more his look than anything, and it was blown up. But I will say what I see in The Mandalorian actually expands it in such a way that's like, yep, okay, this is what people actually wanted. So
Babs said something interesting in the chat there as well. The thing that resonated about 8 was that it was all about anyone could be a Jedi, a rebel. Then 9 is back to you have to be born in the right family to matter. Yeah, it's an interesting thing in a lot of tales of magic that it's all in the blood. And
in most cases, yes. There's a handful of things where it's about channeling.
I enjoy those stories, but should I? I mean, it's the whole destiny, predestined to be the one kind of stuff.
Predestined, bloodlines, cool. Genetics, all real things. Well, so here's the challenge, right? If it's not the story of the few having amazing powers, then you have to build a world where everybody has amazing powers, and how does that work? And that is not the world of Star Wars. It's not the world of most fantasy worlds, because you have very distinct classes. It's just like in classic D&D, where you have those certain classes, mages and things like that, and druids and stuff that have powers beyond just the physicality. And so it's not that it's, they're trying to say, oh, you have to be special. It's that is their specialty. Yeah. Versus those who, some people are
Last Airbender did that, right? They gave pretty much there were some people who couldn't bend.
Oh, there were a ton of people who couldn't bend, and then there were a lot of people who could bend, but only certain types of bending. The only one who could bend everything was the Avatar. Well, not even that. Most people had none, but within those regions, you had a large number of people that did bend a very specific type of bending. And most of them got conscripted into the military, other things like that, to be major power force. And so for me, that's a whole point. It's the reality of life. That if you want to create a world or a story that is all magic-based, do that. But, that is not these stories. that these are stories about areas where there are some that are magical, there are some that are long-lived, there are some that have specific skills or luck and things like that. And so they all have their place in their world in it. Because they also, what you do see in the Star Wars universe, as rare as the Jedi are, they aren't themselves the only answer to situations. There's aspects where it works even without the Jedi. Now, they may enhance a scene or make something better, but it's not all about them. And that's, I mean, come on. Everybody knows the Star Wars story is the story of the droids. And so everything else is just show. You know, it's just things to add flavor to what the droids experience.
Sure. There was 2 interesting points brought up in the chat.
And Babs, that's garbage because that's episode prequel crap that is all garbage. We know that is not good lore. Do not reference the prequels as actual lore, because Metachlorians was stated once and never came up again in anything ever in Star Wars. Even to the point where Disney is smart enough that they have only barely touched on mentioning anything from the prequels because they know how crap those are.
But it's still an interesting point because it's...
Hey, Unizero, thank you for liking the stream.
Thank you very much. Babs does say that Star Wars started with Luke's mum getting preggo by the Force.
That's prequel garbage. That's prequel garbage.
That's an interesting point because that implies that if she was a nobody and got impregnated, then the bloodline, you can become a powerful bloodline in essence. That's kind of what it's implying, which is quite an interesting concept because it means you don't have to be predestined, but you also don't earn it. It's kind of random.
Bloodline showed an additional capability to the Force, and that's something where the majority of the universe thinks it's some weird mystical thing they've heard about. But, and they even talk to that in The Mandalorian again, where it's like, oh, I've heard of that stuff, versus it actually being something everybody's aware of and it's something everyone deals with. That shows the universe.
The entire of Star Wars is when, I can't remember who it was, I think it was Vader actually, somebody was saying, oh, what are you going to do? Use your Force magic on me? And then he just Force chokes them, you know? And they're like, oh. That was just one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah, it goes back to most people didn't, like, you know, take it as...
It was seen as a tribal...
Yeah, it was this weird thing that some people believed in, that most people in the universe don't give any credibility to and have never interacted with. Even to the stories of, like, Han Solo, and they showed again through Poe, as being non-believers who just lived by their own skill and wit, who were exposed to the Force, and started to believe it because they actually witnessed it. That's where the Force and Force users and Jedi and Sith all exist in the universe. These things in the background that you're aware of. Because even most people, when they think of the negativity of the Emperor, and they knew that Palpatine was behind the scenes of the Empire and stuff, didn't see him as a dark Jedi, they just saw him as the Emperor and evil. Right? They didn't deal with the fact that he could shoot lightning out his hands, let alone, you know, project himself over space and time, you know, pull people through space, things like, you know, none of that was the stuff that regular people dealt with. It's the same thing I talk about. I like to look at universes where they portray hero characters, right, that really get into the details of why that hero is so specific. And then I like to look at what do regular people deal with in the world. It's always been one of my challenges to the 40K universe, because 40K is all about these massive battles of huge teams of very specialized people where there's millions and billions of people in the universe that are mostly mediocre and actually live, in my opinion, some of the worst lives in existence because they're all basically slaves to the system, like all of them. And so I hate the 40K lore. I understand the game and the aspect behind it, but the regular lore to me is not well thought out or depth in that. It only talks about heroes.
Lots of people would disagree with you there.
Oh, there's tons of books about it, but again, it only focuses on basically heroes. The few things you get even close to is the stories about the Imperial Guard and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's kind of thing. Hey, so this is a geek show, and we are coming up on our break, and we will talk about the end of the decade. Well, I'm just saying, we still got a few minutes. You continue. I'm going to find the song for the break, but I'm saying that because Babs talked about, like, how, wait, did the chat derail the show? Yes.
Never,
and in a way that we love our chat, we love our listeners, so it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. We're interacting with the audience. That's what we're supposed to do, right? So Copy also said, I said there's 2 interesting things said in the chat about 10 minutes ago. One of them was Babs's comment about the Force baby, Force impregnation, and the other one was Copy's Hermione is a Muggle and she's still a Jedi. And I thought that was kind of a funny comment, and then I thought about it. And it's a good point about the bloodlines in Harry Potter as well, right? I mean, in Harry Potter, it is sort of implied in the Wizarding Society that strong bloodlines really matter and it's something they really care about. But it's exposed throughout the story that, no, actually it doesn't matter.
it shows that
prejudice, and I really enjoyed that theme.
I think it had bits of both. That there is truth that if you came from a sorcerer background, a wizard, you were likely going to have magical affluence, regardless. Like they only tell that there's a very minor group of essentially, I'll use more modern terminology, magical families that end up birthing a no-mage in it, like a muggle out of the family, where the majority of wizarding families continue to have wizards in the family. That it is rarer by far for someone to be a muggle and present themselves as having magical affluence and being brought in to the fold. So it still runs along the same levels that bloodline still matters. It's just not the only answer. Mm-hmm. And I think that's true across all of these stories, even when it comes to like the Star Wars series, that it's true amongst all of it. And I think that where they're trying to go with 8 would have just made things bad if they had made that the focus going forward.
Well, magic in any fantasy-based series is basically just playing on the premise of what makes a human, right? Or us, or our consciousness, or whatever. Ascensions is in part genetics, right? We can't deny. Part of who we are is based on our parents, right? That's obvious. But the other part is environment. And what fantasy tries to do is insert a third element, which is magic. But sometimes it's environmental, sometimes it's genetic, but sometimes it's both. But it seems like there's no other mechanism unless you start thinking about religion or the chosen one.
Well,
you can maybe say that
we could go back to the way The Witcher shows it, in that there's actually mutation involved there, and some of it's forced. And yet they also show the same themes where they have in the magic side some people who are more fluent towards magic and some that aren't, and what they do about that. And yet the majority of the population is not. So again, I think it's such a running theme that people aren't giving enough credit to.
Sacrifice as well. You need.
They have a balance to how you get it.
Things that you have power over already, or something of yourself that you give away.
Yeah, they do show that they have a balance as one of their mechanics.
Yes. So anyway, that was a little bit of a chat about the mechanics of magic and fantasy universes and sci-fi universes. We should take our break if you've chosen a song now, sir.
I am throwing one in now as we go, and this one is going to be, based on our current discussion, we're going to do a song from OC Remix, because that's our place to go, for The Witcher 3 called Love and Loss. And so this is a OC Remix song based on The Witcher. We'll get back right after this, and we're going to go into our discussions about the end of the decade. Thank you, chat, for being so involved with us this day. Continue it even through the break. We're going to refresh our beverages and such and give you a chance to run to the washroom if you need it. And we'll be back right after this in just about 3.5 minutes. So with that, you're listening to Show X on Twitch, YouTube, all the places. Feel free to please share us with your friends. We want more people to join in this fun discussion. And we'll be back right after this.
Send in your emails to showx@vtwproductions.com. You're listening to ShowX on VtWProductions.com.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the show. So, we were having very lively discussions about things Star Wars and fantasy and plot lines and how magic exists in the worlds and the things along that. But it is time for us to switch things over, start talking about, and I'll give us the official for it.
Technology, news, and more today on the Geekoscope.
So today in the Geekoscope, we are going to do a bit of a recap for the year because we have had, well, not just the year, the decade. Because guess what? This is the last week we get to talk about all things in the 2010s. Because starting next week, it'll be the 20s. Hey, welcome back to the Roaring 20s, as people have kept talking about wanting to see happen. And I'm not against that. I think that'd be fun. All right, so to kick this off, I know, Ken, you've had a few lists, things like that. I was going to start off, and basically this is going to be a show of lists and our discussions about them. The one that I wanted to bring up first, oh, come on, come back to me, is a list of the top 25 best games of 2019. We'll start with the year, and then we'll look a little deeper into the decade. And feel free in the discussion, before this, I will say, is that we have an email in from our friend Tom Bad Guy. And so I think it would be good for us to start with saying one of his choices, since he responded to my request out there for comments in. And also shout out to Sidecar77 for following us on Twitch. We appreciate that. So Tom comes in and says, "Hey all, I would say my favorite gaming thing of 2019 would be the game Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. It is most definitely my game of the year for 2019. Is one of the best Metroidvania games I've played in a long time. IGA showed that he did not need Konami to make an amazing game, and it proves that we don't have to have a new Castlevania game to enjoy a gothic and monster-based side-scroller. Hope you guys have a great day and show." That from Bad Guy. Thank you very much. So this is one that I admit I have not followed. I think I heard something about it. I'm pretty sure you stream, Tom Bad Guy, since you tend to stream so many cool games and your skills being portrayed as you go through them. And if people haven't followed, make sure you check out Tom Bad Guy's Twitch site, because he streams some great games. So that's not one that I had followed or kept track of myself, and I'll have to go check it out. So thank you for your submission into the Game of the Year discussion. Let's see. So from some of the big names, and actually maybe I just get this one over with right away. One of the sites I pulled lists from, it's not necessarily my favorite, was IGN. And they went in and they presented their Game of the Year for 2019 as the game Control. Is this?
I don't even know of it. What is it?
Control. So Control. And this is one that I noted coming out because it was advertised heavily by NVIDIA because of its RTX support. And in doing that, it basically, it's one where they described if PsyOps, the mind game conspiracy, and Second Sight made a porno together and asked Stanley Kubrick to direct it, the result would be Control. The story-driven, single-player, third-person shooter packs all the firepower you'd expect from the minds behind Max Payne, but is pairing of gunplay with the main character Jesse's expanding suite of psychic powers that makes its combat encounters so spectacularly destructive and dynamic.
Wow, it's won a lot of awards, actually.
Apparently it has. So this is one that I am only aware of because of the RTX thing, and because our buddy, author John Wasik, has RTX card and was showing me some of the gameplay of it when he came over for one of my Game Fests. And I will say nothing about it grabbed me. So, and I personally have not heard a whole lot about the game. I've not seen it in discussions amongst all my geeks and stuff like that in the various venues where I kind of hang out. And so I'm curious about that. And I throw it out to the audience if any of you have played Control or if you've heard of it, if this is something that would match your list. So I throw it out there just because it's what IGN put out there as their Game of the Year, and I know very little about it. I don't know what else to say. So the list I did want to bring up that I have more to discuss of are this one coming from Games Radar. as their best 25 games of 2019. I appreciate this because this is kind of a whole conglomeration of different platforms and things like that. And so it gets into some of these, and we've done these before, I think, each year, of some of the ones that are out there and what our thoughts of whether we want to get on or off, what we know about these, and for all of you, what your thoughts are on any of these games. So on their list, number 25, and I think they specifically even went so far as to say these are in order, and so they did actually rate them. They put Gears 5. So Gears of War number 5 on Xbox and PC is what they put up there as their 25th game. I have not played it yet. I still need to go back and play through 4. I have always loved all the Gears games, so I imagine if it's held with the same quality, that it will be a good, solid game.
I've heard good things with this Gears, and it's actually made me want to go and play them again, because I played the crap out of Gears 1 when it first came out, and Gears 2 was something I wanted to play, but never really had a chance to. I don't think I had the right console for it or something.
Yeah.
And I just haven't touched the series since.
I've done...
It's something I want to go back and do them all.
Yeah, I've done 1 through 3 and really loved them. I really appreciate their co-op capability, the split screen that they still support and things like that, and just how they deal with co-op in that game. You don't need it, but I think they blend it so well compared to so many others, and even how they present it into the narrative, that I'm a big fan of the Gear series, and so I look forward to eventually playing it. Again, I need to go through 4 so I don't miss one in the way, so I can keep the story. The next one they talked about, and this is one that I did not touch, was The Division 2. And this is one that, because of, I think, the original Division and some of the backlash that came out of it, I thought Division was a gorgeous game, but my challenge was that I thought they presented it incorrectly in that it should have been a forced like co-op play versus some pseudo online play with anybody type of game, because I don't think they handled that online play well. And it ended up with people just dragging you through content versus actually playing through and getting the story and working through it, which I think it had a lot of potential. And so that was my experience. I never touched Division 2. I think a lot of that is because of some of that backlash and the lack of satisfaction I had with the original Division. So I can't really speak to whether Division 2 is a good game or not.
Just a shout out to the previous topic. Gears 5 is actually on Steam right now for 50% off. Down to $30. I would be tempted if I had $30.
Say, there's temptation there, because that's one I do want to play through with people and such, and yeah.
It does look like a good game, yeah. It's got mixed reviews, it says, but the most recent reviews are very positive, so...
Well, and that's what the challenge is too, right? Because games can improve with patches and things like that, where they may come out as garbage, No Man's Sky, and then eventually come out where everybody's saying they're really great, No Man's Sky. So there's things like that. Number 23 on the list, and this one being a Nintendo Switch one, so I know I haven't played it, is Fire Emblem Three Houses. And I've heard very good things about, all the Fire Emblem games, really. And for those that want to play along, here's the list that I'm going through. I know they're solid games. They're very much strategy, and they are focused usually on being specific turn-based with a lot of consequence to action, where if you have characters die, they die. And stuff like that. And so I've played a little bit through one of the Fire Emblems. It was pretty good, but I didn't really get into it. And so that's when I'm curious what others think. Next one on the list, and one I also am in the same boat with, I haven't picked up yet, Borderlands 3. Is this one that you've played any of, Ken?
So the Borderlands series is something that I always wanted to enjoy. It's something that I when I played with people in the community, I would enjoy because I was playing with the community. And I enjoyed hanging out with people. I never enjoyed the games. So I actually tried getting, I think it was the Borderlands 2 bundle or something they had on sale. I think it might be an indie bundle or something a couple months ago. I picked it up, and it was like the Game of the Year edition or something. It had a bunch of DLC, and I was kind of excited. I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll enjoy this. And no, it wasn't fun for me. I hopped back in and I tried playing it. It just wasn't enjoyable. I feel like the combat and it just feels so samey, and it really does feel like there's a focus on just collecting loot without any actual fun gameplay. And I'm sorry, you need both.
So it's interesting because it sounds like in the chat, everyone's kind of saying that they weren't overly impressed with Borderlands 3. And it's one of those things that I think, as Bab says, one of the challenges is that is it really released if it's not on Steam? Is how he commented it. saying that everyone who went over to other distribution platforms have had, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some struggle with how many people have picked up their games because of where they're being distributed, where I have all the other Borderlands on Steam. And I've talked about that before, where give me one place to rule it all, and thank you, God Galaxy, for giving me something to play with on that. That might have hurt, having to go to a different store or something to get it. I will admit that for me, I thoroughly enjoyed Borderlands 2. I think Copy and I played a crap load of that together. I loved Tiny Tina's medieval adventure, that additional DLC and stuff like that. I loved some of the stories they put out there, liked the humor. I know that some of the writing changed, things like that, but for whatever reason, while this one was out there as going to be a big title, it didn't grab me as something I needed to go play. And so maybe I'm over the Borderlands feel. A lot of people are saying it, like Paz is saying that was very samey with everything else they've done. And so maybe that's something same thing. I missed it. Now, one that I will say next on the list that probably a lot of people would have an opinion on, although our audience, it'd be mixed, I think, is Kingdom Hearts 3. This one came out as a console exclusive, which is part of the reason I have not touched it, PS4 and Xbox One. And with that, I'm like, really? But it is one that I know received a ton of hype. And for people to help a somewhat conclusion of the overall story through the various Kingdom Hearts games, all like 7 of them or something like that, as being Kingdom Hearts 3. It's the normal Squeenix type of a numbering system, along with a few other people notorious for that. But it was something I know grabbed a huge amount of hype, and people were all over. It looked very pretty, for one. Although I went through and had to try to go through and check out the story elements of it, I personally could not follow them. I was bad about, just like in general, what stories, or where the story went, essentially. I had to watch multiple videos on YouTube to kind of keep up with it. And so that one didn't catch for me. Another one... go ahead.
Did the stream just jiggle for everybody else there? I didn't hear you for about 10 seconds there. But then you came back, which is... I was expecting the whole thing to have just died, because that's what it does sometimes.
I got you.
Every few shows.
I don't see...
It seems to have recovered.
I don't see any warnings or anything, so I didn't see anything on my end. But please, let us know if something hiccups.
All right.
Say, hey, I'm looking forward to the beginning of the new year where I'll change my internet to see how that helps and how that changes things. We shall see. I may even try to stream out in 1080p again. Yeah, we'll go. Let's see. Next on the list, and this one I have nothing to speak to, so copies of the world of others, please let me know. Cadence of Hyrule, because this is another Switch one, and it is one that's talking about the world of Zelda as being on their list of great games. Anyone? I don't know anything about this game. Okay, that's a Bueller moment, so maybe you guys will fix me in the chat. And Kevin Copies give me a cat shrug, so that one's on the list. The next, What the Golf. Now, this is one I've just started hearing about. So this one's on mobile and PC, so iOS, Android, and PC. But a golf game filled with a bunch of different references and gameplay twists that shake things up at every opportunity. I quite enjoy golf games. One of the ones I've enjoyed was Golf with Friends. Play that at a lot of our LAN parties and stuff with Kuro and Tom Bad Guy and some others like that, and it's always been a good time. And so I can understand it's not one I've played, but I like...
It's not on Android, by the way.
It's not on Android? I thought it says.
No,
PC,
iOS and PC only.
Really? Oh, so in that case, that means Games Radar, your list is off. And so... another one I missed, but I'm pretty sure that El Campo would speak to, is Metro Exodus. The latest Metro game that came out. And I've loved the Metro series. It's just another one that I haven't gotten into yet. Because my list of games to play. And I admit, I've only had minimal ones. But I can only imagine this one's beautiful. It uses the RTX kind of so it has ray tracing, things like that. And it's just such a good storyline of kind of this post-apocalyptic world that is Metro. So it's one that's on my list. How about you, Ken?
I'm not so sure. I don't really know much about it, so it's not something that's really appealed to me. It's just not been on my radar, I guess.
Gotcha. Yeah, so, again, I played the first Metro. I still haven't gotten through the second. That's my limit of this. It's like so many series I get into. I start, enjoy parts of it, but never make the time to complete.
It's just I never played as a kid or anything related to it, so it's just something that's just not been on my radar. I just don't really particularly care about it.
No, and that's where there's
fine. It's great for those who are part of the fandom, but it's just
and that's the same thing. Like for the next one, Tetris 99. I love Tetris games. I don't have a Switch, and so for me, it's
I like Tetris, but I've never seen the purpose of any future game after the original. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with my Game Boy pre-color version of Tetris. I remember playing that as a kid, and that. As far as I'm concerned, that's the complete version. Anything above that is just with paid for DLC that doesn't add anything. I don't see the purpose. It's just
in Tetris 99. The thing they did add is it is a competitive multiplayer variant on the original Tetris. I've heard great things that they've actually had major tournaments now with Tetris 99 on Switch and things like that. And so I've seen things to that degree. I haven't played it, but I've also heard pretty positive things from the people who have. I like Tetris, so adding some elements into that are more of the multiplayer I can see as beneficial, and why not keep putting Tetris out on modern systems? I know there's a VR version or one that's compatible with VR and PC, and I'm tempted to find it for the Oculus just to see if that actually brings anything to it, or is it just pretty? So I'm curious. One that it's also on the list that I'm not surprised because I heard the acclaim about, but I also never played, is number 16 is Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. I know a lot of people that jumped on that one because it's another one of those games that came out as being very difficult, I believe. That it's kind of like the what are the other ones that are famous for that?
It's probably the stupidity of the title, by the way. Shadows Die Twice. It's so off-putting. I'm like, what are you even talking about? It's like,
well, I think because of the whole ninja theme of it being shadows, and the idea of being kind of behind closed door, or kind of the things where you're the undercurrent of stuff outside of the limelight that you're shadow in that sense. So I can understand that. I don't know. Paz says he loved it or shows love for it. I've heard a lot of good things, but it is one of those I think that you really have to get into the difficulty of things. All right, this is one I know nothing about. Telling Lies, supposedly iOS and PC. It's a narrative-driven thriller that tests you with crawling through illicitly obtained surveillance footage of 4 people of interest at the heart of a mystery. That one I don't know anything about. And thank you, Copy. It's the Sekiro Dark Souls Ninja Edition. That is a good reference as to what Sekiro was. Another one that came out that I believe a lot of people had hype for was Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. So the remake of Link's Awakening onto the Switch with all updated graphics and I believe some gameplay elements as well. Because the original came out on the Game Boy back in 1993. And so this is one I know a lot of people who love the original things like that were very excited for. Ken, you dirty butt. Let's see. Another one on the list, Days Gone. And this is one that I'm a little sad that I missed, but I understand why. This is a zombie apocalypse type of game that was supposed to show like very fast moving zombies and hordes of them. It looked very pretty. And of course, the reason I missed it is a PS4 exclusive. And so it's The Walking Dead meets Sony Sons of Anarchy, it says, in this open world RPG that mixes crafting, bike maintenance, and destroying hordes of creatures called Freakers with napalm. It's one that I was kind of amped for, and like so many things, until you find out it's an exclusive. And then I was like, nope, don't care. Next on the list, in a similar sense, although it's not mine I'm not the audience for it, is Pokemon Sword and Shield. And
I don't know why that's winning awards. I've not played it, but from what I've heard, oh my god.
Really?
Okay. Wait, Sword and Shield. No, wait, that was. Am I thinking of the right one?
Well, this is the newest Pokemon that's come out.
This one that got slated, didn't it?
So I don't know much about it. I know a lot of people have been playing it because I have those friends who are all about the Switch and doing all the things they can. And so with that, it's one that it's Nintendo, right? And it's Pokemon.
It got comparatively slated, I should say. I mean, it's got like 80%, 3.8. Like that's the kind of ratings I'm seeing here, which is good for a game, but for a Pokemon game, you would expect higher. And
so that would be the question. That would be the question. Is this reviewed on their list just because it's a Pokemon game or because it's a good game?
Because it's a Pokemon game. Absolutely. I watched one of my favorite YouTube channels is Girlfriend Reviews. And
yes.
She did a fantastic overview as to why this game was really bad. And basically she said the only reason she liked it is there was cute characters. The reason she disliked it was that they basically took they took the opportunity to go into the 3D world with Pokemon and make it like a modern game instead of just a rehash of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. And instead of that, all they've done is taken those games, put them into a 3D world, and then did some really poor graphics instead of actually doing anything unique or like, look at Mario, for example. Mario went from what was originally just a 2D side-scroller adventure platformer, and now it's everything. What Mario game, like Mario crosses all genres apart from shooter, I think. That's pretty much, like, it's pretty much in all of them, right? You have a Mario, like, I don't even know them all. I'm not a Nintendo fan. But there's a Mario game for every genre out there, and they cross that barrier, and people get super excited for the new boundaries that is crossed and shaken. Right, Mario has kind of exploded across the genres and done well. And people were saying that they were hoping Pokemon Sword and Shield would be that sort of explosion in the Pokemon spectrum and opening up to new games and new worlds. No, it's just Pokemon Red and Blue with more Pokemon, and now it happens to be 3D. Done poorly.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like they didn't really evolve anything. They just released a new Pokemon game. And Copy even said that the part of the problem is it lacks the full decks of characters. It doesn't have all the Pokemon. And so I can understand that being a challenge, because if you don't have your favorites in there, why would you play? There's so many people that unless you evolved with the series, and if the series isn't evolving further, why would you care?
Well, it's also like if you made all those Pokemon, which is apparently content, by the way. I've never really been a big fan of that idea. Then, you know, why are you not involving them? And is it going to be DLC? What is this, The Sims? You know, like, I just think it's some BS.
Well, and something that I didn't grow up with the Pokemon series, and so for me, I've always felt the gameplay was kind of subpar. That as a RPG type game, it's very light, and so for me, it was never a big deal.
I always enjoyed them, but it was for me, it's more nostalgia at this stage, right? Like,
yeah.
In itself, yeah, they're not fantastic.
Well, which is why I play Pokemon Go, because it's a very simple mechanic that I can play on occasion, and doesn't really require me to know all the lore or things like that. It's just a base mobile mechanic in game, and I'm okay with that. Where the actual Pokemon games, I feel so lost even trying, and there's so many little aspects of the game I don't enjoy, like breeding and trying to level up certain aspects and friending ones in certain ways to get them to evolve. Those kind of things that I just was like, let me just play the game. And so that aspect is why I didn't... There are several titles on here that are just not the genre for me, and I understand that. So it's interesting with that. I think what you're right there, that in a way it's because it's the Switch, and this is the first new Pokemon game for the Switch, as I understand. And so people bought it more than anything, versus it being a quality game. And I think there's a few on this list like that. This next one I didn't play anything of, but I've heard good things about, which is Outer Wilds. And it's described as an action-adventure game orbiting death and discovery, a game about exploration and rebirth in the far stretches of space. And as I understand it, basically you're trying to go through some process of getting off this planet you're on, or something like that, surviving getting off, and that you will die a lot. But in the process, you start again learning things that how to do things better the next time. And so that you'll progress further and further each way, and stuff like that. Oh, hey, look at that. Paz is saying that he levels up tomorrow. And so happy preemptive birthday for you, Paz. Very much appreciate you joining today, and happy birthday. Let's see. Yes, Hando, Ken's been doing that out today, as he also hit me up during the show to gift me things.
What are we talking about?
Totally interrupt me. Another one on the Switch, and there's a few on here from this list, is Luigi's Mansion 3. Which I know nothing about. A lot of people have played. I heard some good things about it. I know a lot of people have shown hype towards the Luigi's Mansions series as a whole. I don't understand. Apparently it's fun gameplay. I will give credit. Nintendo is notorious for making good games, right? Even if the subject matter seems a bit off, the gameplay is usually very solid. Their level design is usually really good. I've noticed that with my thought going back through the Nintendo games for Zelda, that some of the level design stuff is masterful, and reasons why those games have always been good. And so I can imagine similar when it comes to Luigi's Mansion, although not something I played. All right, for those who I guess this would be more of an indie site or something, only because I know nothing about it. It's called Sayonara Wild Hearts? Sayonara? Oh, Sayonara.
Sayonara.
Okay. Sayonara Wild Hearts. Okay. Developer Simogo? So this came out on PS4, Nintendo, and iOS.
From Lord of the Rings, the developer.
Something to that effect. It says
that's what he's been up to all these years.
Yeah, once he got out of the cave, or maybe that's what he does hiding in the cave. It says, a new neon spin on rhythm action game that's a masterpiece of sound and visuals. I don't know anything about this one. Anyone out there? It's another one that's a little one that I totally missed on the list. It's weird because I'm trying to wonder how many of these I might want to go back and actually play. Hearing this, because I'm just like, man, because I will tell you from some of the other lists, there are some out there that I'm like, I never played that and meant to. Another one that came out was Disco Elysium, and this is one that I think IGN or someone, it might have been Games Radar, actually put up as their PC exclusive, so this is going the other direction on exclusives, that they considered Game of the Year for exclusives for the PC. And it's an open world RPG that they say isn't like any other, and that they do a lot of new kind of twists on the way an RPG can be played. And so based on that, I am curious. And something that totally missed, I think I had seen and heard about, but never played myself. Okay, so pause. I was hoping you were going to say that you'd actually played it, and that way you could tell me a little bit more about it, but instead you're saying that you're waiting to play it. So this is one that I think everybody at least has heard about, if not experienced. Number 7 on the list is Untitled Goose Game. So tell me you've at least heard it.
From what I've heard. Absolutely.
Exactly, fantastic. Right? From what I've heard. Now, I know nothing about this game, and it seems like to me...
Well, it's unlike most games out there, I don't feel you need to experience it. I think if you watch somebody else play it, you get the same feel for it as if you would play it yourself. It's funny and it's enjoyable, but the jokes only happen once. So if you already watched somebody else do it, you've
gone through
enjoy it more because you can enjoy laughing with them, you know.
Okay. So kind of like my observation of Death Stranding, how I've just been watching other people play it.
Well, I don't know why you would watch most of that game. Most of the game looks extremely dull. However, I know the overall story is quite good.
That's the advantage of watching other people. You can kind of like skip forward.
Yeah.
Watch them go through some of the world, be like, ooh, story element. Let me watch that. So thank you, Copy, for the honk, because I've seen memes come out of the Goose Game, and I've seen a lot of people streaming and talking about it, and to me, this feels like it's totally up Copy's alley. Like, if you're going to play a game where you get to play as they say, a stealth game where you play as a horrible goose and wreak havoc on a small village, this seems like being able to play a little cantankerous animal seems totally like Copy's type of thing. And so I can imagine where she says she's watched many runs, why that would happen. So a game I do have experience with is the new Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And I will say, I actually felt like this was a solid release of a Modern Warfare game. I will have to try to come up with a discussion of whether or not I think it's, top 6 on the list. I think in comparison to some of the previous releases of Modern Warfare, this one is one of the most solid that's come out in some time. And so I think it has that running for it. If you're a COD fan, this one I think has felt better than many in the past, although I've not spent nearly enough time in it, as I keep going back to League all the time. But it's something that I enjoy. I think it has solid mechanics. It is visually good. And so I think it clicks well on all the things. I will say I really appreciated the campaign in it, always being somewhat short campaigns in these kind of games, but I did really enjoy the single-player aspect of that. And so for me, that was a wonderful experience this year that I had. Multiplayer, it's still out there, still being played. I think it's a solid game. I don't know if it should be this high on the list. And maybe I'm just missing that, because it didn't grab me to come back. Another one that's on the list that's kind of, I'm not sure how I feel about this one. I think it's a solid game, but I don't know if I'd put it this high. Apex Legends from Respawn. That's on all the major platforms. It's a good battle royale game. Every time I've played it, I've enjoyed the heck out of it. And so it's a good game. Maybe it's because I haven't been pulled back to it, but it is solid.
I suppose our community is not into it, right? Which is kind of the main thing. If your friends play it, you play it, and you'll have fun. I don't have any friends that play Apex that have ever invited me to play, right? It's not I played it once by myself and a couple of times with Hando, I think. But nobody I know plays it regularly.
And that's part of the challenge.
It's all right.
I see people playing it, but they never invite me to play. And so in that same kind of level of like, man. And so maybe I would enjoy it more if that was the case. I'm always down for it. It's actually similar to me as Overwatch. Because Overwatch is a game that I enjoy and I will play, but it never seems like anybody's inviting me to play or saying, let's go play. And that's a challenge. Unit Zero is saying that one of the challenges he's run into is that they've seen a lot of hackers that have gotten into it, which any FPS or any game really that you go that's competitive, everyone going against each other, you get hackers in there that actually change how well the game plays for you, it's going to destroy the game. Right? And I've seen a lot of people bitch about hackers in almost every different game that comes out at some level. Some I've experienced, some I haven't. And so that's it's hard to say. Yes, it is free to play, so there's no reason people shouldn't at least check it out.
That's a good point. Yeah. We should give it. It does get bonus points for being free to play, right? I mean, it's a very fun game that is free to play.
And unlike some lists that people have done, VR Beat Saber, this one came out this year, and so that's kind of what matters for this list. Because there's a lot of battle royale games, a lot of free ones out there that are still popular, big ones, because you try to compare the numbers between Apex and something like Fortnite. Pretty sure Fortnite is still winning, even though it's on a decline. When it comes to battle royale games. So that's a piece, right? And so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Babs, that's a whole discussion to be had. Interesting. Because I'm not a supporter of Stadia, but that is an interesting discussion to be had. Like, it's fine for people. I don't want it. So, and Babs brings up that when it comes to the hacker discussion, that Stadia, basically streaming your games through a service from like things like Stadia, is a justification because it pretty much destroys your ability to hack. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, it would be really hard. You could still maybe do some IO hacks, but I think that would be really hard to do. And so that is an interesting point. Next on the list, and one that I've heard very, again, kind of either way on it, is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the newer Star Wars game that came out. I've heard a lot of people say it's really solid, really good, something they've been waiting for and have been enjoying the heck out of, and other people just saying, actually, when you start getting into the gameplay, it's fairly meh, that it's very repeatable and things like that. So I don't know what to say about this one. I have no personal experience, but I have heard a lot of hype about it that people have enjoyed.
Sorry, so that Skype thing happened again. Could you please say which game that was?
That was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, the new Star Wars game.
So I also saw a couple of reviews with this one that was quite interesting. Again, I haven't played it myself. The gist of it was it's a fairly solid game, but it doesn't bring anything new to the table. It seems to be a mishmash of what other games have do well thrown into one with some weird puzzles thrown in.
Which isn't the worst thing, right? Because that could be it's a solid game.
Bugs through it that don't seem to have been fixed yet, including like simple things like when you try to climb up something and it all seems fine and you should be able to climb up that thing and you're halfway through climbing up and then suddenly you're 10 feet in that direction without any explanation. Right? There seems to be a lot of odd physics issues.
Gotcha.
Which is not.
But I've heard overall it's a fairly solid game if you like that kind of game. And if you're driving for a Star Wars game, that this might be the exact thing you want right now. So there's that. And although, again, it's interesting that these things are getting that high on the list. The next ones they have is Resident Evil 2, the remake. I've actually heard a lot of good things about this, and people have been enjoying the heck out of it being like the pinnacle of Resident Evil games, and that it brought a lot of fresh things to that old game, and so that it feels like the original while providing enough new things that it still feels fresh. And for me, if you're into that horror genre of kind of that survival yet actiony horror, this seems like a good game for you and one to check out. I like that. Unit Zero says, no, the Force explains odd physics.
I forced myself into this wall.
Whether good or bad, that's how I got there. Next on the list is The Outer Worlds. I've heard a lot of good things about this one. A space RPG set in a future ruled by megacorporations filled with eccentric characters, alien species, and bacon-flavored tumors. I do not know that reference. They actually say on the list that you should play it because it mixes the fun and frolics of running around deep space accompanied by a gang of weirdos carrying big guns with complex stories about corruption and colonization. And on top of that, it manages to deliver on the big RPG promises about choice. You can straight up murder anyone you meet, ditch your team members and play solo, or try and make it through the whole game with your charm skill point alone. The tone is always tongue-in-cheek, but it manages to deliver some genuine touching moments with characters like your introverted engineer buddy, Parvati. The story doesn't shy away from forcing you to make tough decisions, so you might want to light a relaxing candle before you start. But that will only make you desperate to play it all over again as soon as you're done. Actually, the description there of the why
sounds very enjoyable.
Right? That does sell it to me in ways that I would not have expected. Tom's saying that he thinks it's amazing, so that to me is a pretty big review.
I'm looking up now.
And so, interesting. Right? That review of it actually does.
This is an Obsidian game. Of course. I've heard good things with this. Yeah.
Same have I, and it's on all the major platforms, so that's good to see. They do finish up the list with Control, which we'd already talked about, so I won't belabor that any further. But now, I will say, of that list, Outer Worlds is the one that's probably been now put on my watch list beyond stuff I already either own or was already tracking.
So it's not actually released on Steam yet, but it is meant to be released 2020 on Steam.
Okay. Is it out on PC at all? Or is it just...
I believe it's in the Microsoft Store. But does that really matter?
Well, so I say this only because I give credit to Microsoft, and we've talked about before, how I bought, like when I bought Gears 4, I bought it on Xbox, but can play it on my PC. And so
it's $45. It's got $15 off right now on Xbox Live and also PC.
Not bad.
However, it's also included in the Xbox Game Pass if you have that.
There you go. Nice. I will give credit, and actually we're talking about holiday season, some of that stuff as we go. And it says Tom Bad Guy saying Epic Game Store, where you can get hold of what is Outer Worlds. I give credit for Epic is trying hard, right? They're trying hard because the free games of the season, if you haven't been following, they've been giving out a free game every day over like a 15-day period or whatever for the holiday season. And I have picked up most of them, I think.
Is there anything that stood out as good games?
Yes. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, all right. So like today's is the Talos Principle, which is a solid experience game, right? And the funny part is, even if I own some of these on Steam already or something like that, I'm going back and grabbing them, as I am right now, on the Epic Store because I have no problem collecting digital licenses. And it doesn't mean I ever have to install and play the game, but if I ever feel the need, it's there. And so I am doing those things already like now. And so some of the ones I did pick up, and actually I wonder if they show it in the list of everything they came out with so far. Because they have little symbols showing like which ones they were doing next. And the next one has a little lock symbol, but it doesn't necessarily say what it is. And so of the ones I picked up, let's see if I can check which ones were good in there. They had some like The Witness. They had...
Very good game. I've played that a fair bit. That's a very good puzzle game.
Right. They had FTL was on it. It came out one day.
Fantastic game, but it's also super cheap. So
it is, but still, most of the games were like $10 games that they gave out completely free. Hyper Light Drifter, as Tom Bad Guy is saying in there as well. There were a bunch of really solid games. Enter the Gungeon. I think Dauntless was another one they gave out.
Okay, that's good.
Ape Out they gave out, a few others like that. So I give them credit for really trying to tie people, come back to our store, exist here.
Well, that's why they're doing it, though, right? I mean, like,
oh, it is.
I'm not falling for their strategy. I'd rather stay on Steam.
It's a complete ploy to bring people into their store. It doesn't mean I'm going to buy any game on the Epic Store if I can get it anywhere else first. I'm not shying away because I did pick up MechWarrior 5. And that is an Epic Store exclusive, but I love my BattleTech, my MechWarrior games. And so that I was going to get it no matter where it came out. And so, yeah, I will stay on Steam as much as I can. But if it's there and it's a game I really want to play, admittedly, I'll go find it. And if I can launch them all out of the GOG Galaxy anyways, then I'm not worried as much. So it's getting there. Pause, thank you for giving us the entire list in our chat of all the games that they have released thus far. And I forget how many more there are, but if you do get on today and you have an Epic Store account and you get in there now, you can get right now, as we just said, as I just forgot which one was today's, Talos Principle, as well as any of the future games coming out before the end of this. So, hey, I am a fan of people giving me free content. So I'll throw it there.
Free stuff's always good. You can't go wrong there, that's for sure.
All right, so... Ken, I'm going to throw this link out for the next. Do you have a list or such that you want to jump on next, as I've taken up the majority of this?
I have a few things I had to bring up, including a couple lists. But first of all, I actually wrote my own personal top 5 games, or top 4, I guess. Not of this year, not as in they've been released this year, but the top 5 games I've enjoyed playing this year. That's a fair
list.
Yeah, so it's mostly fairly recent stuff. And I've got them in an order of how much I've enjoyed them, and some of it's going to be fairly predictable. Some of it maybe not. Some of it I haven't really given much time because I kind of blew through the game but thoroughly enjoyed. Okay, so I'll start with the one I enjoyed least, which is still in the top 4. So still very good.
Of the top ones, yes.
Yes. So number 4 is Dying Light. Dying Light has been a very solid game that has kept me. In fact, I'll look at the hours that I have in the game. It's kept me entertained for a total of 35 hours in the past couple of months, which is a long time, and I still haven't completed the game, the main storyline, and I still plan to go back in and continue playing it. So it's very very much a solid game. And honestly, I could even this was a contender for number one as well. Honestly, I've really thoroughly enjoyed it for this year's games. I probably played it more than most other games, and the graphical beauty, the audio that creeps me out still, even when I know there's nothing nearby me that can kill me, and I still freak out when I hear a zombie. And the co-op elements are just so enjoyable. I'm really blown away by how good a game that is. And once I finally got a laptop that could run it, it was well worth putting time into and more time in the future. So that is errand number 4. It was beaten very close by Prey. Now, Prey is a game that I was not expecting to be good. I thought it was going to be a Dead Space 5, right? That's basically what I thought it was going to be. I played the Prey, or I don't know if it's actually the same series or not. I think it's maybe a restart of the series. I played the original Prey on Xbox One. No, not One. Sorry, the original Xbox.
Okay.
I hate the fact they named the latest one Xbox One. I played the original Prey back then, and I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was that Alien Factory type thing where you're a Native American who gets zoomed up into a UFO, and you're in a meat processing factory, and you have to get out by using the power of the Native American. It was a little what's the term? It was a little discriminatory towards Native Americans, because it was kind of like, oh yeah, this is you can use the power of the Native American because this is they have magic or something. I don't really understand their culture, but it's basically magic, and I felt a little, I don't know.
See, I thought they had actually worked with Native Americans when they were building into it, because it kind of went over some of the fantasy lore of it, but turned into a modern setting. And so, because I remember when it came out.
What's the difference between that and using Jesus powers? I mean, people would say that's in poor taste as well. I mean, I don't know. I guess I prefer it when there's fictional religions like the light and stuff, which are loosely tied to Catholicism or something. But I like the fact that it's not a direct thing. I feel like with the Native American stuff they were literally using and abusing actual real world.
Well, culture. So abusing would be the question of it, because I mean, what about the Jesus game we just talked about? I mean, now granted that one looks
that's
shite.
Abusing, and the atheist in me laughs, right? But it's still not exactly in good taste, right? I don't think anybody can say that's in good taste.
Well, and like I said, I didn't hear any controversy about Prey when it came out. I was following it as it was made. And so I don't know if it actually did get any backlash.
Not the new Prey. I'm talking about the original.
Well, the original. No, I know. I mean the original when it came out, because I played it, the original when it first came out. I really enjoyed it. It has some great just mechanics for an FPS back when they first came out. And that's why I've been curious to play the new one. And and thank you again for gifting and such, because I have to now play it at some point and put it on my list to be played.
It's very, very good. So the original Prey came out in 2006 for PC, Mac, Linux, and Xbox 360. And yeah, like I said, it was an enjoyable game. I just found that one element was a bit weird. Maybe I just don't know enough about it, to be fair. But anyway, the new game is fantastic. It's not got any of that weird Native American stuff in it. It's just a game where you are a human being in space trying to work out why pretty much everybody's dead, and also magic exists kind of. Through the powers of you genetically adapting to being kind of alien. There's also really interesting futuristic technology in it that you get to use. It's very much a sci-fi plus fantasy kind of experience. And it's got really good RPG elements. You can customize how you play in the direction that you play in as much as you want. There's a lot of secrets to be found, a lot of power-ups to be found via secrets. It's very atmospheric. And there's also a lot of creatures that will absolutely mince you alive if you walk up to them too early on. And I kind of enjoy that. It feels like you need to
actual scalable difficulty in such.
But
that's nice.
No, I wouldn't say scalable.
Not scalable, but actual things out there that are meant for you to. Yeah, there you go.
But you can get you can make bad choices, and that's okay. And I like that. And it punishes you for that. Anyway, beautiful game, really really fun to play. Really surprised me out this year. I was in the middle of my PhD writing my thesis at the time, and I got it on Steam for whatever reason. Thank you to whoever gifted it to me. I can't quite recall if I might have bought it myself, actually. I can't remember. But anyway, I think it was on sale or something, and spring sales maybe. And I purchased it, and I started playing it, and I thought like it'd be a half an hour break. I ended up going through that whole thing in like I don't know, like a day. I was just like, that game was amazing. I couldn't believe I spent a whole day playing it, but it was just so
nice.
Good. So that's Prey. I really recommend playing it. It took me by surprise, and I got really engrossed. And I'm actually tempted to reinstall and replay it because it was just that good. So that's number 3. Number 2 is a game that I haven't really given enough time. I've only put 13 hours into it, but they've been 13-hour segments, all about 10, 15 minutes each.
Okay.
So please take that for what that means. This game is built into song lengths. So if I have a song that I've imported into it that's 3 minutes long, and I play it 15 minutes, I've played the same level approximately 5 times, minus the number of seconds from which I died, right? Because it's quite a difficult game, for me anyway. And the fact that I played it for 13 hours is 13 hours divided by 3 minutes. So thousands of times I've jumped into this game to play.
Okay.
And I still don't feel like I've given it enough time. This is Crypt of the Necrodancer. It is basically an 16-bit kind of looking game that is based on the premise of when you move your character when the beat of the song is. It's currently 80% off on Steam, and so I gifted a couple copies out there because it is a really fantastic game. I've played the crap out of it. I really enjoy it. It's a tough game. I've had fun streaming it as well, actually. It's been quite fun streaming that game. The only problem is I have to find copyright-free music. It has a base game music inside that is good and enjoyable, but I find it's way more fun to have songs that you like, right? Especially fast-paced ones, because it makes it more difficult. And it's just, as you go through the levels, you unlock more abilities, you power up your character, you can unlock secrets and other characters to play. So far, I think I'm 80% through the game or something like that. But that's still only with one character. There's like 16 different characters you can play as, each have different abilities or ways to play. It's quite a simple game, honestly. The premise is fairly simple. I don't think it was the most difficult thing to create, but it's a very well-designed and enjoyable experience. And a very unique gameplay mechanism of moving on the beat.
I do love rhythm games, and just in general. I think they're great.
If you play this, it's a small install. It'll take you 2 minutes to download. And if you play this for just 5-10 minutes, you'll probably be hooked because it's a pretty fun game. And There's a lot of little mechanisms you need to learn and master. There's quite a steep learning curve. Like, you can play straight away, you can jump right into it. But there's a lot. Each creature you come across is a different mechanism of how they move, if they move. For example, there's some creatures that only come after you if you're facing the opposite direction. There's some creatures that only move in a certain pattern between different blocks. There's certain creatures that move twice as the speed of the beats. So for every one beat, they'll move twice. And you just start thinking about the sort of maths behind it of how many beats do I have until they get to me, and then I need to be in the right position to jump on them before they jump on me, and yada, yada, yada. It's a really fun and surprisingly strategic game, but really fast-paced as well, unless you play on slow songs, of course. But I highly recommend it. Crypt of the Necrodancer. I've talked about it before in the past. It's just a great game.
And thank you for the gifts across the community. I'm sure we'll all be able to enjoy it now.
Of course. Please do play the crap out of it. It's fantastic. And also check out the chat for free games being handed out there, where we are throwing free games out from the kindness of Mr. Wayne here. Last game I want to mention as my number 1 game that I've played this year, and this is no surprise because it's probably the number 1 game last year as well, is Factorio. I adore this game, man. It is just one of the best games ever created. It's probably it's up for me in terms of my lifetime of games played. It's probably in my top 3, along with World of Warcraft and probably Tomb Raider. Right, that's where it is for me. I love Factorio. It has given me such a satisfaction that I am happy to dump days at a time into this game, and it's inspiring me to go on and actually create mods for it and do some research on some potential things I can do with that. I haven't played it nearly as much this year as I'd like to. I would love to one day have like maybe a game fest or something. If we get like 5 to 10 people to start a new map and play it together on the absolute hardest difficulty, and we have people working on different you can work on the power, you can work on defenses, you can also work on defenses because we'll need it. And, you know, like that kind of, like, if we had like a really well, and maybe beforehand we could spend like an hour planning how we were going to like place everything. That could be amazingly fun. I'd love that. Factorio is a great game, and I think, you know, they say puzzle games make you smarter. Factorio is like a million puzzles in one, but it's in a video game that doesn't feel like a puzzle.
It's an optimization thing. It's something that you're crafting. It's allowing you to think through processes and how they relate to each other and how they work together to solve problems.
Absolutely, yes, that's exactly what it is. And when you work in a team, that's also particularly fun. Hando was saying that he just crossed over the 1,600 hours mark in Factorio. I'm only on a paltry 460, but good God, it is such a good game. The modding community is fantastic as well. The amount of stuff out there that you can do. And also, I need to give a shout out to the devs, as I always do whenever I bring up Factorio. Their Friday development blog updates, the Friday Facts or whatever they call it, are so interesting. I've read every single one for the past like 4 months because how they do their development, what they concentrate on, and the development cycles they go through is so interesting from a professional perspective, from a development perspective, from a fan of the game perspective. I think they really treat their community as I wish even 1% of companies did, because they truly appreciate their fan base and work for them. And you can tell. For a game that has never been on sale, they just crossed their 2 million sales threshold in the past month. The game isn't released yet. It's still in beta. The 1.0 hasn't been released yet. And they're in the run up to do it. They plan to release, I think they announced it was September next year. Is their planned release date 1.0? And because they plan to do a whole bunch of stuff like remaking the tutorials and remaking certain graphical systems. Every time I play it, it's slightly improved, and I love it. It's just such a good game. Pick it up. It's $30, worth the price. It's worth paying full price. Factorio. Thank you very much for the share, Beatrice. Much appreciated.
Yes, my friend Zoe. Thank you very much for the share.
Yeah, that's neat. All right, so that was my list of my four top games for this year. Sir, do you have anything you'd like to share in terms of your top games?
So really the top game,
from this year?
No question, the top game for me, just what I've been playing, is still League of Legends. Of all the games I've probably played in my life, I've put more time into League than anything. And I keep telling people openly, I play ARAMs primarily. I also have been playing a lot more Teamfight Tactics. I've been playing it ranked. I've gotten up to the point where I'm Bronze 2, I think, in the ranks. Because it doesn't stress me out, because you're still basically playing on your own against others versus having to rank with team members and figure out how to best play through Summoner's Rift. So for me, the sub-modes of League of Legends are very exciting to me, and I'm actually really looking forward to what things Riot will come out with in the future that are based upon kind of the League of Legends IP, but aren't just the, or the top-down strategy type, the real-time strategy battle arena version. And so that's where I put most of my time. I agree that Dying Light's a great game. I didn't realize, like so many of the games that have come out, how old it was, and yet it's still this quality. In fact, we won't have time to get into some of the lists, but there's ones I had on here. One of the ones I'll share the link for if people want to check it out themselves, I thought was actually pretty poignant, as it's talking about the decade, 30 best video games of the decade. I started looking through their list, and they even started with Outer Wilds on there, but it had some of the games on there like Stardew Valley, Destiny, realizing the original came out in 2014. And for a type of game, it did some interesting things. But Overwatch, Dota 2, being back in 2013, right?
Wow, yeah.
Hotline Miami back in 2012. So, because I'm interested in this list because it talks about some of the specifics about why they included it on a top of the decade kind of list, what it brought to the genre. One of the big ones, and I've heard more recently about this one, is Alien Isolation, right? Which you've talked about before, and especially now because they're working on, and people have done it through mods, the VR version of it, which is supposed to make you poop your pants even faster. Two other games, like one on the list I want to check out that I missed from last year is Dead Cells. That looks really interesting, and things that I've heard about I think I might have but haven't played. I know Tom Bad Guy loved was like Hollow Knight. And some of the other ones of this.
It actually glitched out on me repeatedly. I ended up uninstalling it.
I think I remember that post of yours.
I got really mad. Yeah, I was like, "This is."
It's like I want to play this.
And it won't freaking work.
Yeah, no, that is frustrating as heck. They did mention League of Legends on their list, and realizing it came out in 2009. It is 10 years old, right?
What is a decade?
Right? You start thinking about gaming stuff. It's like, how long have these been going? Pokemon Go, which came out 3 years ago, and I've been playing it the whole time. Ones I missed, like Gone Home. One that I heard tons about, but I haven't bought myself, Nier Automata, and stuff like that. These are all games that are admittedly on my list. The newer God of Wars that hit in 2018.
Oh, by the way, that's been on reduced price on the PlayStation Store, both US and UK.
But it's PS4!
$15 right now. I'm sorely tempted because that is a game that's one of the best of all time.
Yeah, people loved it. You know, best out of the year.
Can I give a shout out to Skyrim 2011, by the way? I can't believe that it's...
On this list, right? Rayman Legends was 2013, solid game. Last of Us 2013, which I didn't realize how old Last of Us is. In a game like that is supposed to be great. Metal Gear Solid 5, right? 2015. Mm. But it was for the Metal Gear Solid. People say that 5 was like the pinnacle of it. Not a game I played through.
I played it. It was okay. It was very grindy, and the story was weird.
But that's another one of those. It's like Kingdom Hearts. The Metal Gear series story is crazy. And I've watched videos just on the story, and it's ridiculous. So for me, not a top title, but one that's out there. People give a lot of love. They gave it to Super Mario Galaxy 2, which they kind of consider as for that genre, right? The type of Mario Galaxy games. It is a really solid game. I did watch some of, what was it? Some of the gameplay for Horizon Zero Dawn, which is 2017. As being a really solid PlayStation game, right?
I think it's a beautiful looking game.
Yep, and I've watched it played, and I thought it was really neat. Fortnite, which is 2017, as much as I despise that game because it has brought so much to the younger generation of gamers, that's not necessarily quality. But as we're talking about, you'll appreciate some of these. Witcher 3, 2015, right? They have it as number 9 on their decade list. And Witcher 3, the whole Witcher series, but everybody says 3 is the one that just hit the pinnacle of what the Witcher series could be. And we talked about it, now it's becoming even more relevant. I have stories they're talking about because of the show. More people have gone back and started playing it. Like, it is upticked by almost 4 or 5 times what the average playership has been since the series came out for Witcher. Another big one, and they go to a specific version of, but Mass Effect 2 that came out in 2010.
Wow! Yeah, absolutely. Mass Effect series is fantastic. Some of it's a cornerstone of sci-fi gaming. Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm still not played the Mass Effect series, but I know how impactful they were, and I own the first 3. I know.
Before everything else.
You say that, but I've got so many things. Yeah.
What do you have on your list? What's your next 5 games? I don't know why Mass Effect isn't number 1.
League of Legends.
Knock a couple of those off. Yep.
Well, so the problem is, right, I keep going back to what I can play right now, kind of thing, right? I've been playing Bloons 6 because I finally got a Bloons game. I love tower defense, and that one is one of those things I can just throw up and be like, and play through and optimize. And I've been playing MechWarrior 5 of late to start getting through the game I most recently purchased versus letting things carry digital dust until I finally get to them. I have too many of those. But yes, I know I need to play Mass Effect, and it's huge. They gave number 7 as Bloodborne, and I know it had a huge impact in the world, not when they hit me as much, but they talk about the fact that this proved that games like Dark Souls and stuff weren't a fluke, that people love challenging, brutal games and stuff like that. For your sake, Ken, number 6 on their list is Skyrim. And I didn't realize...
a bit higher, because that was...
they talked to some of these. It came out in 2011. Right? It is 8 years old, and it continues to be modern in many ways. I keep wanting to go back and play the enhanced version. I see friends on my Steam list still playing Skyrim. You know, I'm curious to check out the VR version and stuff like that, just because I got immersed in Skyrim so well, loved playing through it. One that I've not touched and so I can't speak to is Red Dead Redemption, that series. I know it's huge. I know people love it.
I played the first game and it's a DLC, and that was thoroughly enjoyable. And I am very much looking forward to playing Red Dead on PC, but I haven't yet.
Well, and I will probably skip to Red Dead 2 and not even bother with 1. But I've heard nothing but good things about Red Dead Redemption.
You can do that. That's fine, yeah.
Another one, and I thank you, this made the list, Portal 2.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right?
Because the Portal 1 was just such a...
Portal 1 was a blast.
When it came out, right?
Yeah.
It was...
Yeah, right?
The Geek Crowd from... It was partly... partly along with Big Bang Theory. It was one of those things that took the Geek Crowd from being this quiet, small subsect of society to being a socially acceptable, referenceable thing. Portal, like people were referencing Still Alive, and then Skyrim continued to do the same thing as well, right? With the I took an arrow to the knee. It made video games more accessible to the average person.
Well, and it just changed the way that puzzle games were being done, and did it in such flair and such humor, right? It provided a level of the way the narrative of it was delivered was better than so many games, and others have just tried to mimic. And Portal 2 took what they had done in Portal 1 up to another level, where you had, the commentary, especially like for me, the surprise of Portal 2 for me was when you dropped into the old section of the game, and you got to go back through the original like voice tapes of the creator, and just the flair and the snark he had, and the story they told, and how they're willing to sacrifice all these people for science was so amazing and hilarious. So yeah, Portal 2 is up there. I know we're at the edge of our time, but we've got to finish this list at least. And there's stuff I'd love to wish we'd go further and talk more about. But number 3 on the list is Minecraft. And
oh shoot, that's in the past 10 years.
Yeah, 2011.
Oh man, yeah, that's oh yeah, talking about genre defining. Oh my god.
No, it just was to the point where, and I recommend people go check out if you ever want the link or to get in there. Our buddy John Wasik, he has been rebuilding his world of Hallerite in the Minecraft engine, and it looks gorgeous. Right? It's still relevant today as a game, basically 8 years later. Number 2 on the list is Dark Souls, and it just basically broke the genre again to difficulty in games, showing that you can get in there and make a game that requires challenge and people can enjoy it, which I was very thankful for, because I felt like the genre of game making was going more towards catering ease of play and where anybody could succeed and stuff. We saw so many examples of that where I felt less compelled as a gamer and stuff like that. Like I didn't feel as rewarded for doing well in games because I wasn't as challenged. Where that one came out, and I have not really played it, but thank you for all the games that have come forward from that. Now, one that can be, like any list, can be controversial, right? For the quality or style or the impact of a singular game. But their top of the list they have is Breath of the Wild for Nintendo. The later Zelda game that came out.
Yeah, I get it. Not number 1.
So, and that's a problem, right? When you're trying to encapsulate a decade of gaming, that's a struggle. But I will say, and this is probably, I minimize it a bit because I've not really played it. I have means that I play it on PC, but because it's a Nintendo game, right? You either need a Wii U or a Switch to play it. That I maybe, it excludes a large portion of gamers in the world, being that much of an exclusive. But everything I've seen about the type of game it is, what it plays, and the stuff that it does, it's gorgeous. It seems to be the pinnacle of what an open world adventure RPG type game could be.
Like, fine, but it definitely broke down barriers within that world of Nintendo and the Zelda series, right? And yeah, it brought in more people as well because people were interested in how well rated it was. But compared to Minecraft, to Mass Effect, to Skyrim, to Portal 2, to these games that didn't just define a small section of genre and specific type of console players, but like gaming as a whole. Seriously? That is not. That's it's factually wrong.
I think what they're discussing about this is that it is such a wonderful execution of all the things it represents. That if you were to look for a adventure game, dungeon crawler / RPG, open world type game, all those things together, that Breath of the Wild is like a pinnacle for all of them. That it represents all of those kind of subgenres and genres themselves in such a great way. Again, I don't know for sure, but it's one that I know it's a solid game. And the little bits I played it have brought me big smiles and joy. Fine. And I look forward to playing it more.
Bad game. I'm just saying it's not genre defining. Best of the
I will
decade.
say that Tom Bad Guy does say you've never heard the term Zelda-like, because Zelda itself is a genre defining game, a type of thing.
Sure.
And I'll agree. It may not be the top of the list, but I think it is a damn quality game up there. I don't know what I would put top for a decade off the top of my head. I really don't. It would be, what do you base it on? Is you base on how it's changed gaming for the time frame? Do you base it on number of sales or something like that? Or do you base it on just your own version of what you found fun, right? Where did you find yourself grinning the most or just coming out feeling the most satisfied from? That's why all lists are subjective and they're all controversial. But I will say that all of the games on this list, I'll give credit to CNET, I think were impactful. And you even showed a few examples where you're like, oh yeah! And realizing that these games are just in this decade.
Sure, I appreciate that. I like I said, I just think that's just
okay.
Actually wrong to put.
All lists are controversial, right? And so I can't say because I haven't truly played it, but I know everyone who did loved the bejesus out of it. You can go into more depth with these lists if you'd like. Games Radar has a best 100 of the decade and things like that, because when you talk about 10 years, it's like taking the top 10 of each year. And you can roll through these lists and see so many that you may agree with, disagree with. For at least the CNET one, when it comes to gaming, is there something you think, at least in that top 30, they absolutely missed and we didn't get to? Because I would love for you to share this in, not just you, Ken, but for our whole audience. Share in your list. Either email us, or I think this is a good discussion for us to have on our Reddit about what would you put in the top of the decade, at least a number one or something you identify as a game that people should give more credit to that maybe they don't. Because
I was going to mention the Fable series, but only Fable 3 came out in the past 10 years, and that's not really worth mentioning. So,
well, it's like if I were to try to bring up the Half-Life series or something like that, and it's like, well, Half-Life 1, yes, but beyond that, things like that. And that's a problem, right? I would love for people to give us a shot on that.
It was pretty good, but it was just a nice game. It wasn't amazing, though.
Tom, no, Rocket League wasn't on at least the 30 list. And I haven't gone through the top 100.
Very good.
So, but that's the thing. This is an opportunity to kind of look through and say, man, there are so many good games out there.
Wait a minute. When did Civ came out?
Like the original Civ?
No, Civ 5. Civ 5 was fantastic.
Yeah.
2010 September. Okay, that should be in the top 5.
Really?
Civ was amazing. I got 10 out of 10 on Steam, got 93% on PC Gamer, 94% on Google. It's one of the best games of ever. Right, and then Civ 6 has also come out since this, and now the ratings for Civ 6 have increased recently after they did some updates, and people love those games. Come on, Civ.
Well, and this is why I would love to share this on our Reddit page to have that discussion about what are some of the best games you enjoyed, so that we can all kind of get that out there and kind of get a collective opinion on things that maybe we might have missed.
Witcher.
Well, so on this list, no, on the previous list where it had Witcher 3. Actually, did this one? This one had Witcher 3.
Where was it?
I just closed it, darn it. I think it was up there around 10-ish. It did have Witcher 3 on there.
I would happily replace Breath of the Wild and Witcher's place. Witcher would be number one. I would be like, I get that. That's acceptable. It was a fantastic game. And it could definitely replace Breath of the Wild as the best RPG and beautiful mechanics and yada, yada, yada.
So there's a lot there. So I know we're over time. One thing I did want to at least bring up, because we talk about geek and technology and things like that, we don't have to go down this list and go depth. But it was an interesting discussion point that I also got from CNET. And I was looking through all kinds of top 10 lists and such. Could you grab our link for the Reddit? Is Tom Bad Guy's ready to jump in on this to share our Reddit? Throw it into the chat.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
So this list from CNET it's not just about gaming, right? We're geeks in general. They did another top 10 list on the most important tech trends of the decade. And things they saw that technology in general, how it affected us. So I'm going to bring up some of the lists, and we'll just real quick see what people thought in general. Uber, Lyft, and Airbnb. Just the fact that those are totally new concepts that have come out in this decade.
That's a crazy thought, isn't it? You'd think that they've been around forever now. That's a really good point. Wow. I used Lyft twice today.
We've always had the traditional things of taxis, hotels, hostels, things like this. But I think the big thing about this is turning it all into an app. Making something so simple to find in a network-connected way through technology that now I can just bring up Uber, and not only does it tell me, or Lyft or whatever, it shows me right now where a bunch of drivers are in my neighborhood, right? All around me. And what I can get to, and I can choose my way of doing it and things like that. Yes, I think it has truly impacted life. Just all around us. That
Absolutely.
It is something that people have made everyday parts of their lives. People I know that live downtown who basically only have a car to drive to work and back, otherwise Lyft it everywhere they go. And especially like you're talking about with your adventure last night, or going out and stuff like that, using an Uber or Lyft to go be able to enjoy and imbibe and stuff like that, and then not worry about how you're getting home.
It's been great for saving lives in that respect, I imagine. Like, not directly, but indirectly, right? People
Just in
don't
so many
drive
ways.
buzz as much as anymore.
Yep. Another one they have on the list is AirPods and the death of the headphone jack. And I'm not sure how I feel about this one.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's dead. I would just say it's just out of our comfort zone.
Well, they are pushing for more things to be wireless connectivity, and we've definitely seen a huge push for wireless headphones and things like that. We'll see if Apple goes forward with and gets rid of even their charging and data port in the future if we're going truly wireless now. But that is an interesting change. I don't know if I put that as a truly technological difference or change, but it's an interesting thing. The next trend they do show that I think is a bigger one is Amazon Echo and the Alexa movement.
That's a big one.
Which is speaking
it's not as
more.
big as I thought it would be. I think less people are adopting it and less quickly than I expected. I think when it first came out, there was a big interest. But honestly, what has changed? What has this device changed with in the past, 5 years?
Well,
what is different since
I think it's the blend of where it's going with technology. I'll have to admit, I just got an Echo, started playing with it, and I see potential. And I've been seeing more potential in what's coming in. So has it been fully adopted yet? I don't know. But both in the sense of just the idea that you can now use digital things to enhance your life from the sense of like an assistant to even some of the controversy around it about, security and your information and what it means to be cloud enabled and for other people to have maybe access to recordings of your voice and snippets and things like that. I think, again, whether it's a top 10 real impactful thing on technology, but it's definitely up there. I think it is something that is happening. Because, again, this is strictly tech, right?
Well, it's the AI in both the Google Homes and in Alexa and in our phones, though, right? I mean, that's another big part of it. Is that
I think that's really
used to the idea of having an AI available to chat to.
Yep.
I use it all the time on my phone. I honestly use that way more than the one at my home. I'm constantly adding reminders, telling it who to phone, asking questions. I frequently do that.
Well, and so I think some of these titles are speaking more, if you really think about it, the wider genre that it represents. And that's why, and like Paz just brought up saying he would disagree about it with the evolution of Bluetooth. This is the previous one. It has made leaps and bounds for the audio community. It will make its way into your home theater setup soon and stuff like that. I agree. Bluetooth's everywhere. And the advantage of being able to easily connect to something to stream or push my content to it or back for me is massive. That I can link into my TV and use my phone to quickly search for something, just send it, and it's there. Or that I can...
another one. Because I was thinking of Bluetooth and the pure quality of Bluetooth.
There's an issue with the compression of Bluetooth. I'm sure Hando would agree that he doesn't want to see everything in his work connected via Bluetooth, because that'd be disgusting when it comes to audio quality.
Yep, it'll be horrible. Bluetooth's okay, but it's very pure security, and two, very poor quality audio-wise, because the transfer rate is so slow. They're having new improvements and stuff, but it's still not great. I was thinking more about TVs, right? The resolution of things like our phones and screens and TVs and laptops, they've increased massively. 4K's become kind of the norm, and same with upper-end phones. AMOLED displays, etc., are absolutely the norm. I've got an AMOLED display on my phone, and it's something I don't really even consider now. I'm just kind of used to it.
Yeah, it's HDR, it's high def, it's gorgeous.
Crazy. So. But my phone display is actually better quality than my TV, weirdly enough.
Yeah, well, it's because of the cost of making something this size versus the size of a television. And that's why even regular OLEDs are still a premium compared to other things. Well, so you're talking about resolution of technology, and how for me that's a little bit of a natural progression in technology. One of the things they put on their list is the Apple Watch, but really they're talking about, just as they're saying, the explosion of wearables and having wearable technology that's beyond just a regular watch. Having smartwatches that can check your heart rate and can monitor your whole day and things like that, and how essentially technology turning into a regular adaptive piece of our lives. That it's an everyday thing that we are now incorporating in there that everyone has. And it's like, it doesn't surprise you in the least to have someone get a buzz, look at their watch and say, oh, so-and-so's running a little late. And stuff like that, right? That it's how all of us are coming with technology more and more touched in our lives. And I would do a lot more if my work didn't restrict what technology I can take in, which is why I don't have a watch of any kind. I appreciate you guys. I love the lively discussion we're having. Unless you have to run anywhere, Ken, we'll go a little long.
I actually do have to go soon, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, you tell me when we'll cut it. We'll go through. But it'll be interesting because wearables in general, I think it's just the idea that we're getting more and more technology attached to us and always available and always a part of our lives versus really being unplugged. It is getting harder and harder to find people that are fully unplugged.
Absolutely. And I know that 10, 15 years ago, I remember my dad, for example, he kept saying, oh, I'll never have a Facebook. I don't see the point. I don't need Facebook. And then eventually I went off to uni and I came back one day and he was like, I think my business would really help if I had Facebook. And I was like, yeah, I've been telling you this for a while. And he got it. And yeah, his business boomed because suddenly people could share stuff online. He had events every single week and they could share it to their friends and invite people. And, when somebody was interested, they'd invite 5 friends.
Yeah. Well, that's a big thing, right? Because what's not on this list that I think is something to be important about, but it's talked about in conjunction with it, is just social media in general, right? Whether good, bad, or ugly, social media is an absolute, part of most people's lives, at least in the modern...
What's really interesting is we went through a phase of annealing, of movement between different forms of social media, right? We had Bebo, we had MySpace, we had... before Reddit, we had Dig, and all these different things that have just ceased to exist, or like GeoCities as well. Either ceased to exist or they've moved into a more permanent form in Facebook, Twitter. Google Plus died as well. That rose and died in the past 10 years.
Yeah, I
actually really like Google Plus.
You mentioned one of my favorites because I love Dig. I loved Dig. Yeah, and that it still exists, but it lost all its relevance. And honestly, once they shut down Kevin Rose when he stopped broadcasting his show with Alex Albrecht and such, that was when Dig Nation fell apart, I think, is when it kind of went away. I wish they had continued that because that was such a relevant geek show. It was so good. So it's funny, it's like in the chat we're talking about things with the quality of Bluetooth, things like that, and some of the other stuff. Other games like Tom Bad Guy bringing up GTA Online, which I think is just an extension of GTA, right? Is GTA Online its own thing or just the online piece of GTA?
That's a good point, yeah.
But also like the rise and fall of Vine. You have a lot of different aspects of social media, but social media itself, I think, is a massive thing. So you say that, John, about how much audio do you need for Bluetooth and for the quality of audio? Audiophiles will tell you they will never listen to anything on Bluetooth. Like the people who will spend if it's the idea that you would not pump a audio signal through Bluetooth to a $5,000 pair of headphones, because that just doesn't match up. You'll never get the quality to take advantage of those headphones. Why would you do that? And so it's kind of the discussion about people listening to even music in 128-bit. Like, if you're doing that, what are you doing? If you're not at least at 320 kilobit per second, you're missing so much of the quality of the audio. And, people who will only listen to uncompressed audio like FLAC Wave and things like that, or Ogg Vorbis or such, versus MP3 and any of the compressed. So while for the average everyday consumer, Bluetooth will satisfy all your needs, I agree. It is fine. It does wonderful audio. Bluetooth speakers are wonderful. They're convenient and great. But if you're an audiophile, if you're spending money on the quality experience of audio, that's where Bluetooth falls apart, and where you're hearing from us who broadcast, where, we used to do, when I was on Noctail and Hordak, we used to do it 128 kilobit for audio and down lower because we're just a voice channel. I was like, nah, I got to put it out. So right now we broadcast out at 160. And when I do probably the upgrade to the new internet, I'll probably jump it up to 192 because I want at least, even though you're only hearing our voice, you should hear every little inflection.
Well, that's the thing. We've invested in microphones that are able to pick up our voices and every single syllable.
Yes, the soft, sultry voice of our wonderful...
soft, sultry voice.
As you hear us get close so we can talk in the deeper voice. But anyhow, so yeah, there's a lot of discussion. All right, other quality things or things that are technology, and this one I think does have impact. I think my brother Babs would agree to. You, Ken, would probably agree to. Number 6 on the list is Tesla Autopilot and the big upgrade. And so...
yes.
Basically what this is really speaking to me, and they're focusing on, I think they're missing on the list the ability to really get into the part that matters, is stop it, Unizer. We're not going to do sexy voice the whole time. This is a conversational show. It's the idea of having...
The problem is we really should be close to the microphone constantly, but it's just... Well, okay, for me, if I put this microphone next to my face, it would fall over. Because it literally can't... My microphone stand isn't capable with the shape of my desk. I just bought this microphone stand to try and fix an issue similar to this. My previous microphone stand would stay perfectly sit on the on the x-axis, but on the y it would move up and down constantly, so it would just fall. So I used to have it resting on the top of my laptop, which is really inconvenient. And plus, it would pick up any keyboard noises very quickly. Now I've got a new stand, but the problem is if I pull it too close, it'll fall again up and down.
Well, no, part of my concern is I'm actually separating the mic from the keyboard. Because this show we do both, and it is hard to build our noise gates just right so that you don't catch the clickety-clackety, and it still comes through on occasion, and we're trying to minimize that, right? Ken. Whoa, Ken. Careful how you pull that out. But yes, if we got close to our microphones so that you're only picking up our voice and so that they're really focusing on the quality and the full timbre of our voice, you get it much more rich. Anyhow, again, audio quality. Hando can school us in all this. All right, we were talking about the...
Okay, it's actually working better than I thought it would. Is that a little nicer for everybody?
You do hear it a little more warm, Ken. It does help out.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
The only problem is now, half the screen is now...
Right, is a microphone. Well, and for me, it's like... I talk with my hands enough as people make fun of me that I don't need to keep hitting the mic over here and stuff if it's too close to my face. Anyhow, stop it, Tom. Stop it, John. You guys are dirty. So we were talking about automation when it comes to driving. And this is something that I know, Ken, your sensibilities, especially coming from Scotland and places like that, and even in your current situation where a car is a convenience that you don't necessarily use all the time, the idea of automated driving must be enticing.
Oh, I'm fascinated by it. In fact, there's a guy that I work with who is, he works in some of the algorithms behind this kind of thing and trying to quickly find solutions to some of those problems. Specifically, he works with the ethical stuff. That's sort of like hyper interesting to talk about stuff, right? He works with algorithms that need to quickly make decisions that are ethical decisions. He doesn't make the ethical decision, right? That he says that's out of scope.
But he makes the algorithm. You still have to decide which one is the correct answer, and the algorithm will say, "Okay, that's what I have to do now because of the algorithm." But it's
that's up to the law and the companies.
It's the common discussion about utilitarianism versus, I forget what the other one's called, but the philosophies of how you interact is one thing. But I know from my brother's perspective, especially, we've had a lot of conversations about self-driving cars. He doesn't believe that you will be allowed to drive your own car in 10 years. That everything will be self-driving?
I agree that will be the eventual case on non-private land, yeah.
I comment that one of the challenges with that is that I have yet to see how well self-driving cars do in inclement weather. And the idea that at some point having a car tell you, no, I can't take you somewhere because the roads aren't good enough. In my job, that doesn't qualify.
You'll need to accept certain risks and terms and conditions, probably.
But I'm saying you will always have to have either a means to drive yourself in certain situations, because I've yet to see the algorithm that does a better job of getting me through an ice-packed... I haven't seen it demonstrated.
Okay, this is the problem. You're talking about you, right?
Well,
the algorithm that can drive better in ice and snow than you. The average person is a very easy milestone, right? If you can beat the average, you will be. I am saying lives.
I've yet to see an algorithm even attempt to go against inclement weather, things like uneven terrain and stuff like that. That is not the everyday. For things like driving on a dry, sunny road and known traffic, I have no problem with. And I agree with the help and automation as being a thing that augments what your experience is. But I still am struggling with the ability for it to take away from ever driving my own car. And I understand what you're talking about. And again, this is where I say, this is something that I know people like yourself and my brother I think are heavily on board with. And I see it coming, and I see it going to be more and more in the market. I don't know when we'll ever get to a point where it fully takes over for the analog driving experience.
Driving a car is... Okay, the basic principle of humanity is that the reason that we're so prosperous is yes, largely due to intelligence, yes, largely due to the thumbs in our hand, but one of the most important, I'm not going to try and rank them, but one of the most important is the fact that we have the social contract, right? It's the fact that when you're in a car, for example, and you're driving down the freeway and there's 16 other cars within a 10-meter radius of you, any single person there can make the decision to kill everyone there, right? At any point. Easy. If you're driving 70, 80, 90 miles per hour, as is often the case here in the US, you can easily kill everybody around you if you so had the hesitation and the wish to do so, right? Then nothing would stop you. You could easily just do a slight turn. It's as hard as that, and you can kill people.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Which I will argue is true of almost everything we do in life.
But
I could choose to grab a big heavy rock and crush someone's skull in any day of the year, and you're never going to get rid of rocks
successfully.
Not at all. Okay, a brick to the back of your noggin.
16
done.
People without getting stopped is much more difficult with a rock than it is with when everybody else is already in a
with a car, with a plane, with a gun, with a knife. There's all kinds of levels to. I go to the point of I accept risk in life for the convenience of being able to make decisions how I choose at any given time, knowing that there is risk in that, because I don't believe you can ever fully counter an ability for someone to do something wrong.
You would never experience life. I agree. Yeah. But my point is not that humanity is great and yada 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 hoorah. My point is that we make this social contract of a forced requirement. We have to do it in order to enjoy the luxury of travel. But there is actually now an alternative where we can now have various machines which are intelligent and can communicate. We don't currently have communication on the road, right? That's a big problem. We have visual communication. You can tell if somebody so chooses to indicate and you happen to notice it, you can maybe get some information from them. But if there's 16 cars all next to each other, they can coordinate to the point of extreme usefulness.
Agreed.
If one of them notices a bump in the road and the others don't, they can all analyze at the same time and within a millisecond and change their routes or change their speeds
Agreed.
Or whatever else in order to maximize the chances of all the people in those cars being safe.
But again, augmentation versus restricting my ability to drive myself in any way. That's where I'm at. Keep me in my steering wheel, allow me to drive when I feel necessary, but at the same time, let me go the method of demolition man, where I can choose to hit it in self-drive mode, and it does it.
Oh, absolutely. That will happen for a period.
When I need to, I can still hit the button and have the wheel come out and take control when I feel the need.
You shouldn't always have that.
See, and that's where I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes forward. But I don't think there's any argument that the idea that self-driving vehicles and the augmentation that currently exists is a major player in where technology has gone in the past decade. I absolutely think that is a real thing. Also on their list they have, which I don't know exactly how this one says, is the quantified self. Use tech to fight tech. I don't know what this one means. It says the collateral damage of the digital age is that we're spending a lot more time sitting still and looking at screens, and it can have terrible effects on your health. As people have become more aware of the risk of this possesses, it created demand for tech solutions to help monitor and manage the 3 pillars of health: exercise, diet, and sleep. So fitness trackers, things like that. Do you think that's a big change in the world? I feel like the same people who are always trying to be fit are still trying to be fit, versus the same people who are lazy are always being lazy. I don't know a single lazy person who's grabbing a fitness tracker to say, like, this will change my life.
People have. Absolutely, people have done that. I've seen lots of people who decide, it's the same as the New Year resolution group who say, oh, well, it's the New Year, I'm definitely going to lose lots of weight. Some people, sometimes it works, and that's great. And if it works, then fantastic. Nobody's going to complain.
But do you see
worked,
technology as being a defining or changing aspect to it, or just continuing the same trend we've always had?
I think technology has made us lazier as a whole. I think there is good technology out there that can aid those who choose to be active. But if we look at the statistics of the countries that have the most technology, the vast majority of them have become more obese over time. Admittedly, that's not just due to technology. That's very much making it's overly simplifying the picture. It's a very complex problem, right? Why have this many number of billions of people gained this percentage of weight on average is a hard question to answer. You can't point at, well, Domino's now deliver. You can't point at, well, there's now a takeaway app on phones.
Yeah,
you can't point at, well, TV's now more entertaining than before, so people are more likely to stay in. It's all of the, or there's now Ubers, so they don't have to walk. It's all of these various things together, right? We have the choice, and generally speaking, as a society, as a species, we are instinctually made to prefer choices that will save energy so that we can survive in the long run, even though that instinct is now pretty much futile, because in the West, we are overeating, right? So we have an instinct that's driving us to death, and it's a big problem that we need to overcome, obviously. Can we blame technology? I suppose you could point the finger at it, but I think that would be very much pointing at the symptom rather than the problem. I think that, yeah, okay, just back to the question. Does this technology help? Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah,
But is it life-changing,
yeah,
or is it just another augmentation for convenience that we do like so many other things?
I think for some people, I think it's probably saved a lot more lives than it has. And I think that's the best measurement we can take.
I just don't see like the Fitbits and things like that really be revolutionary. I think if you go back to older technology like smart pacemakers and stuff like that, that they're actively saving people's lives, that makes sense. You know, the automation of technology like self-delivering diabetic medicine, you know, where it gives you insulin on schedules and things like that, so you're not having to poke yourself your things. Those are the things I think are like actually life-changing. Fitbits is just, I think, another way of people to be aware of their health based on people who are already trying to be aware of their health. More importantly, the number 4 on their list that I think is mattered and does make a difference, cord cutting. And how that has changed media consumption and the fact that people are getting rid of traditional broadcast television in favor of internet sources.
Can I upgrade that to, rather than discussing the source, it's more the reason why, right? It's the fact that it's on-demand services. It's stuff that we choose, right?
Things that started with like
service because it has 800 channels.
Yeah, but things that started with like TiVo and stuff like that, where it was the ability to say, I'm going to track this specific show and watch it at my convenience. Another sense of convenience, but I do agree in the sense that it is changing how we are consuming and what we choose to consume, because we're not having to just get television, right?
Yes.
In its whole.
A company chooses what you watch, and that's the problem with why we're so upset with Netflix, etc. in the modern day, because, you know, they as I was just complaining about, Star Wars was taken off when I started watching it, and that irritated me. But yeah, that has its own difficulties. I think it is pretty amazing that we're at a stage now where we can pick and choose to watch instantly, like that, without having to go to Blockbuster. We don't have to walk down the store to a video, which, by the way, in itself is an amazing. I'm sorry, I'm just going to take a moment to see how amazing our technology is in general. If you wished to watch some entertainment back in the day that involved some kind of drama, you would need to go down to the local Play Store and theater and maybe pay an exorbitant amount of money, or request somebody to come, a troupe of actors to come visit to play a certain play.
Man, you're taking us old school, yeah.
And that would take you 8 months for it to happen, if at all, and it would cost lots of money, right? Whereas now, you can not move your feet and somehow see that with perfect clarity and the best props and with graphical enhancements and the best characters, not only in your local town, but the best actors in the world playing the parts. It's just, it's fascinating that we're at this stage, and yeah, we're sitting here complaining about, like, oh, those millions of shows, the one that I want to watch isn't available on the platform that it's funny when you think about the big picture. If you talk to our ancestors, even if you talk to your grandparents about it, they're probably like, shut up. Like, they're still amazed by. In fact, that's an interesting point. I brought this up a year or two ago on the show. There was this guy I knew, friend of my gran, who lived in Ipswich. He still lives there, I think. And he was talking. He had this workshop in his back garden, and it was full of all these old engineering tools. And he loved, like, taking apart vacuum cleaners and stuff, and like fixing them for his friends, and like engines. Like, he used to be an engineer, and so he has this proper workshop at the back that had like a million different tools. Some of which I was like, you must have stolen that from a factory, because that is not for domestic use. Like, there's some impressive stuff there. I mean, like I said, he was taking apart engines, right? I mean, that's not easy.
I've done an engine in my garage, but yeah.
I'm talking about tractor engines and stuff as well. This guy did some pretty big things, right? He took apart washing machines. I don't know. Anyway, just 'cause he was interested more than anything, and he'd fix them and stuff. But anyway, so he was talking about how his son told him about this YouTube thing where you can watch tutorials, but he couldn't work it out. And I was like, oh, I'll show you. And I spent 2 minutes just dragging the URL to his desktop so he can easily find YouTube. And he was almost in tears. He showed me, he shuffled over to this old drawer that he had full of tutorials, like things that he had printed off that he got his friends to print off for him.
Yep.
They were like
just guides. Straight up old guides and books. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I visited again like 6 months later, and I looked at, he said he had a problem with his computer he asked me to fix. And when I was fixing it, I asked him if he's been using YouTube, and he said, I've watched so many videos. He says, I watch like 20 a day. I have so many ideas. I've got so many projects I've started. He started talking to people that he met via YouTube to share tips and blueprints, and they're emailing each other. And I think he's found this community of like old engineers who found YouTube. and it's quite cute. And I think actually that I know it's not the last 10 years, but I think YouTube and non-company or small company distributed content.
Well, so I was going to say,
thing, including
in a way,
services.
yeah, mixing the cutting of the cord and the next one, which is cloud data and AI, which is I think really the revolutionary thing. Access to data. Just everywhere we go. Not only the access to data, what's already published, but the ability for anyone to publish something. And so all of that, I think, has probably been one of the most revolutionary things in the last decade. That started earlier. It goes into even number 2 on there, which is iPads, Chromebooks, and the new PC era, which I still wonder exactly how they do, because I don't think mobile iPads have taken on, like people keep saying they will, in the death of the laptop and the PC. But the idea, and it goes even to the last one, I think all these are together. It says 4G LTE, and put in the world of your pocket is their number 1. All of that, I think, is speaking to the same thing, which is access to data and anybody being able to publish data. Where it used to be, for you to actually host or put up your own information, your own video, your own content that you provided, took a lot to do.
It was expensive, and if you could upload to somewhere like YouTube, you would have to either be a content provider. Because I remember when I had my first YouTube account, I was allowed to upload a maximum of 15 minutes of content at a time. And I remember when I tried to upload some videos, I realized that I had to splice it.
Yep, I remember that.
Yeah. Right, and now we're at the stage where you can just upload what you want.
You mean like almost 4 hours or 3.5 hours of live video and audio stuff that we've been doing this week? What?
Right. I mean, we can just do this. We can just do it on a whim.
Well, and look at this, right? I am streaming out through 4 different services right now live that you're all listening to, and it'll be available for archive on YouTube until YouTube decides we can't monetize our system enough because of the new terms of service. And but essentially, there's content out there for everyone. I did the same thing. Just yesterday, I was looking up information on FreeNAS so I could update my Plex server properly, manually, because you don't just download a new Docker. You have to go into it via Linux distro, grab the latest update and packages, and do the update that way. And I had never done that before, so what did I do? YouTube! Answers! Done! Thank goodness for that, because instead of having to go out and find specific manuals or talking to an expert locally, someone you'd have to actually source or find yourself, you can just go to the internet, do a query, find that information, and utilize it within moments. And I think that has done more to advance, potentially, human society than anything else we've come up with.
I think that's going to be one of the interesting things with the Zoomer generation, as they're being called. Once they grow up, they grew up in...
They'll never know the struggle that it was to research and have to find real information?
No, not that at all. I think it's just becoming way more easily accessible, which is hardly a bad thing.
Well, we say this, and then my little political twist on that is finding accurate information.
Yeah, of course. And that's always been an issue, though. What I'm suggesting is, in the past, when Zoomers grew up... Well, sorry, when we grew up and when previous generations grew up, we watched this almost state-allowed content on TV, or the state-allowed newspapers, or the state-allowed stuff.
Yep.
We're now in an age where you can watch content from anybody in any place in the world, and we're already seeing some fallout from this, in the good and bad. We're seeing people who are noticing that there's crap going on in the world that's terrible, and we need to do something to help about it, for one, which is great. I mean, we know about when there's been blackouts in certain countries like India and Iran in the past couple of months. Those have been major things because it's so... The fact that they just stopped talking. The internet was blocked. The internet was turned off for a week or two. And that's mental in this day and age. But secondly, the other problem is these Zoomer kids are growing up being able to watch stuff that can indoctrinate them with conspiracy theories, with flat Earth theories, or far right, far left extremist group stuff, right? Weirdos messaging them on Facebook and trying to convince them to join certain causes and cults and whatever else. It means that they're both more vulnerable to false information, fake news, and also being recruited, as well as having an access to the biggest library of information. Something that the Library of Alexandria could only wish to have achieved in 10,000 times its size, and it never could, right? The internet is the most impressive technology that we have ever created as a species. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how Zoomers grow up in this age and how different they are to the rest of us. Because we always thought that, Gen X, Gen Y were going to be super interesting because they had internet. When I were growing up with the Gen Zoomer, who are the same as they have the internet, but now they have the refined, better internet. They have the easily accessible internet. They don't have the dial-up that's very slow. They have YouTube already exists and is super popular, and Wikipedia is already fully defined, more or less.
And I can get it in my pocket. Yeah.
And it's all accessible in the palm of your hand. Yeah.
So if nothing else, I think everybody, there's a lot to look at what we've done in the last decade, if not more, technology-wise, and why it's actually a lovely time to be a geek. Because, man, if we're not getting so much for us, everything from entertainment that is geek-focused, from things like great sci-fi and fantasy that we're seeing available today in storytelling, to comic movies and genre and stuff like that, just to the technology we're seeing put in our pockets, in our daily life, everywhere around us. It's almost to a point where everyone's a geek, whether they know it or not, and what a wonderful time it is to exist and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right? So thank you guys for joining us this week as we've gone trying to wrap up the best we can this year, this decade, the things that were 2019 and the 2010s. It's been a good time, and I appreciate all of you for taking the time out of your lives to join us in our discussions and share with us our kind of geekiness. Some with bigger transitions than others. And as we continue to track into the new year, all things Ken turning American, as I enjoy watching.
I should also say thank you very much for joining us on our very special show, 420 Blaze It.
For those who partake, you may have partaken during the show. It's up to you.
It is legal here in Michigan because that's something that's legal here in this country.
Reasons that Ken is flying the red, white, and blue. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Ken, would you show everybody out on the ways they can interact with us as we get ready to enjoy the new year?
You have been listening to ShowX America Edition live on VtWShowX.com, twitch.com/VtWShowX or ShowX, and reddit.com/r/ShowX, twitter.com/ShowX, twitter.com/DocDead, twitter.com/DrKenRead. Search for ShowX on Facebook. Send us an emails to showx@VtWShowX.com, and always donate to us on Patreon as well if you so can. That's patreon.com/ShowX. Thank you so much for joining us on this final show of the year, on episode 420, which is so special. I think the next big one that's actually worth mentioning will be 500. So
likely.
That'll be a year and a bit's time, probably. We'll see.
Very much so.
So thank you very much for hosting, sir, and thank you for a year worth of ShowX. Thank you everybody for joining us for this, our final ShowX-miss of the year as well. And we will see you all in the next decade, the Roaring 20s, take 2.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ken, for leading us out. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for checking us out. If you'd like to support us, please feel free to invite your friends to enjoy us as well. Share all our content so they can find us. We love having you. And thank you very much for the lively discussion today. You guys have been wonderful. And with that, we are out of here. Happy holidays. Happy Christmas. Happy soon-to-be New Year. Happy birthday to Pause. All of those things. We're out of here. Love y'all. Bye.
Goodbye. See you next zombie.